Good evening, everyone. It's Thursday, November 14th, 2024. Time is now 6:32 p.m. I'm calling the Fraser City Council regular meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Neither one of them. You can't.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Baranski.
Present.
Mayor Lesich.
Present.
Councilman Odell.
Present.
Councilman Perry.
Here.
Councilwoman Shornack.
Present.
Councilwoman Stein.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Sutherland.
Present.
That is a quorum, sir.
Thank you very much. Item number 4, approval of the agenda. I have some things I would propose to move around and in order to get our visitors, paid professionals out of here in a timely manner. My motion would be to move 8A to be 7A. That's the 8B to 7A. That's the HVAC. Item 7B would be the library building future plan. 7C would be the industrial road conversation. And 7D would be the utility rate study.
Second.
All right, any other changes to the agenda as presented? All right, seeing none, all in favor of that change, say aye.
Aye.
And aye. And then I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second it.
All right, motion by Mayor Pro Tem Sutherland, seconded by Councilmember Stein to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. The agenda is approved. Item number 5, citizen participation. Sorry about this, Mike. Citizen participation on agenda items. This is the moment in the meeting where if you can't stay to that particular agenda item, you can come up and talk about what's on your mind about that item. Anyone in the audience would like to speak about any agenda item? Seeing none, we'll move on from that. Item number 6, consent agenda. I would entertain a motion for the consent agenda or any questions that we...
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, motion by Mayor Pro Tem Sutherland, seconded by Councilmember Odell to approve the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Consent agenda is passed. All right, item number 7A, HVAC. Ms. Levin, would you like to start this off?
So today we have representatives both from our engineering firm and the engineering firm that's been working on our HVAC system in the meeting here, and they're going to be able to provide some updates on what's been going on with the HVAC system since the install and answer some questions that you may have regarding that system.
All right, good evening, Mr. Vigneron. Take it away.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Thanks for having us here today. We are nearing the end of a very long road for a project that was kicked off back in October of over 3 years ago with a facilities condition assessment study for the HVAC system. At that time, there was a budget item for some rooftop unit replacements. Being aware of a number of other ongoing issues, we thought it was to just make sure that
Hold on, is everything working, Ed? Oh, all right. Could you restart your count?
Sure.
Thank you.
Do the abridged version.
The bridge version. We're here today to talk about what has been going on with the HVAC. So since the project was kicked off in October of 2021, the assessment was completed and the project was put out to bid in spring of 2022. If you'll recall, there were some changes that were happening with the Department of Energy Code, and we had some reservations about awarding the project as was bid. There were uncertainties related to the rooftop units at that time. So we split the project into 2 phases, the controls and the rooftop units. The controls essentially is updating the control system, thermostats, which I know is not the right proper term, providing some new VAVs and other improvements to the system to allow it's a more modern control system. That work began in February of 2023 and was mostly wrapped up by summer of 2023. There was some additional interfacing that needed to happen with the rooftop units. The rooftop units, Phase 2, was rebid and awarded in November of 2022. That work commenced pretty much immediately with shop drawing review and approval. Those units were ordered in February of 2023, at which time we were anticipating a delivery of October of 2023. Fast forward to delays from the manufacturer, and rooftop units were actually delivered and installed in May of 2024. After the units were in, there was some additional interfacing that needed to happen with the controls, and that work has been occurring basically since May, but I'll say more urgently since September of 2024, just recently. We've gotten to a point now where there's just a few items that are left, and those are parts have been ordered. They're manufacturer warranty items, so there's just kind of waiting for those issues to be addressed. You probably all heard the roar of the fans as the meeting was about to start, and that's just kind of one of the, I'll point out, as the new system is being integrated with people actually occupying the spaces, we're learning every day just some things that needed to be adjusted. So, for instance, we just found out that the thermostat over there was in heat mode, so even though we were turning the temperature down, it didn't necessarily adjust. So when we finally figured it out and put it in auto, air conditioner kicks on, and now we're leveling out at 70 degrees. There were a number of other issues that were addressed throughout the project that had been pre-existing in the fire apparatus bay and some other leaky joints and things like that. But I guess I'm happy to say that as we stand, the project is nearly complete. It's operating essentially as intended with the fine-tuning that occurs with any new system. The city received 5 new rooftop units that are more energy efficient and meet the current energy code. You've got new controls that allow for, or intend to allow for remote access for city personnel to be able to view and make modifications remotely, in addition to on-premise, and address those ongoing maintenance issues. The cost of the city to date is just shy of $700,000 for all of the work that's been performed. And I know that was a little more than our initial estimate, but a lot has happened since October of 2021 when that estimate was first put forward. So with me today, I've got Dave Conrad from Peter Basso Associates, who's one of our prime subconsultants on this work. Also, Jason Arlo from our office, who's the director of our architecture department. We have 2 of the contractors that worked on the project, Tech Mechanical, who was responsible for the rooftop unit replacement, and Synergy, who was actually a subconsultant on the controls work, but had the lion's share of that effort. We understand there might be some questions, and we're here to answer anything that might come up.
Councilmember Shornack.
Oh, you knew that was coming. So, gentlemen, all you gentlemen who are part of this little catastrophe, as I'm calling it, because it's been a year. And we have sat in these chambers for a decade now with it going from summer, Savannah, to icebergs in the Arctic. I want guarantees, and if not, then I feel that our city is entitled to refunds. We should not have to be dealing with this for a year for you guys to figure out how to get it to a nice, comfortable level. Mike, you and I have had many conversations about this. We shouldn't have to, for the once a month we come in, or if we have extra meetings, have to bring in parkas because we're waiting for the switch to turn, and then no one can justify why it keeps happening. It is not okay. If this was your place of work, you would not be happy sitting there going from hot to cold, hot to cold, hot to cold. That's how people get sick. And now we're going into that season where everybody gets sick. So I just don't understand why this has been such a hot mess. I would really like a really good explanation, because honestly, at this point, I mean, I'm not in heating and cooling. Clearly, that is not my forte, but I think for the amount of money that this city has put out for this whole project, we should be getting a refund at this point for all the inconvenience and all the nonsense that we've had to sit through, not to mention the employees, because I know you can go into one area and it's like 60 degrees, and you go in another and it's like 75. That's not okay for the amount of money that this city put out for those units. It's just not.
I'll take the first shot at addressing it as I guess, best I can. Obviously, I'm not the expert on this, and if the questions get too technical, I'll refer. Some of the delays with the rooftop units did require that a temporary interface be provided from the old units to the new control system. And once the new units were in, they were essentially running on autopilot until there was a final connection that was made. Again, I'm probably oversimplifying what happened. That was just done within the last month. So while the new units were in May, they were not fully functioning as designed, as intended. Again, that just happened, and the building is now fully under control with the ability to adjust individual rooms. And again, we're still fine-tuning the space settings to see where they need to be to provide the comfortable room temperatures for individual employees. We know public safety likes it quite a bit cooler. There are certain offices and temperature sensors that are near windows that are typically hotter when it's sunny and then cooler when it's not, and that affects people in spaces away from those sensors. I understand the time delays. Some of those delays did result in additional costs, not to the city, to the consulting team, to make sure that those were corrected at no additional cost to the city.
So when do we anticipate the quote-unquote tweaking to be done? Like where it's not going to constantly be like, oh, well, now we just found this out, and oh, now we just found that out. I mean, are you certain at this point you guys have this under control, that you understand what is the problems and why we're having these issues, or is this still we're just going to give it our best shot kind of thing?
Well, I can't say for sure that give you a date. I think, like any system, there's always going to be some outside influences that are going to affect the performance of it. And it might take this heating cycle as people figure out where those sensors need to be and make small adjustments. I would say into the next cooling season, there will probably be similar learning curve. The city maintenance staff and vendors will need to begin to operate the system and learn how that operates over time as well.
So is that going to be additional cost as we quote-unquote learn this system?
No.
I'm sorry, right now, my faith is gone in this whole entire project, and I was very much wanting it because I know how bad our system was. But thus far, I have not been impressed, like, at all. And I know I'm not the only one, but I will say it. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Question. You said that this was in heat mode when you got here. Is there the ability here, because this room can get hot and cold depending on how many bodies are in it. Will it kick in to cool? I mean, does it switch between heating and cooling to bring that temperature down, or is it
Yeah.
one mode or another?
It can. There's three modes. There's heating mode, cooling mode, or auto.
Okay.
And it was in heating mode. So while we were trying to make it cooler, it was saying, well, I'm just going to heat, and I'm already warmer than you guys are asking for, so I'm not going to do anything.
And there are apps that our DPW can control that with.
Yes, yeah, and we understand that there's still some bugs being worked out with the interface. Last week, we did get training from the contractor and the vendor that prepared that, and they've been very responsive to all of DPW's inquiries, and they're here tonight. The system does provide nice reporting and trending, and you could look back and see, to the minute when somebody adjusted something, and then over time that kicks up, and you can watch the temperature changes over time. It helps with diagnosis as well for any issues. While we were in training, I was asking probably some dumb questions, and we kind of figured out some things that were not quite right, and I think that'll continue as the system's operating.
Will this also adjust temperature after hours and lower?
It has the ability to. You can set schedules for every hour of the day, 365 days a year.
Okay.
You can put in special events. As we currently have it set, it's occupied full-time, so it'll, once, whatever the set point is, it's going to continue to maintain that. We do understand there are a lot of different meetings, things on the weekends and after hours, so until we're real comfortable with the way that it's operating, I think the administration has indicated they would prefer just to kind of keep it set all the time. We do realize there's a lot of energy savings that could be captured by operating it like I'm sure most people's houses, where at night, our heat goes down quite low and we'll kick it up when we're home, and then opposite with your air conditioning.
Okay. So right now, we're going to keep it at fully occupied till we're satisfied that it's holding the temperatures in the various zones, and then later we can look at something more and do some energy efficiency if it warrants it.
That's our understanding.
Okay. Any other questions on council here? All right. That's it? I think you're good to go. And I can, Patrice and I have been here a very long time in this room, over many years, and we look forward to it being finally done. And, but I've frozen in here, and I've sweated in here in the same night. So we're looking forward to that ending, so thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I should have my agenda. All right, item 7B, library. City manager or Mr. Denault, would you like to take this one to start?
I will take a shot at it.
Thank you.
Gotta turn my microphone on, make sure I don't get the door. So I will take the first stab, since nobody on TV heard me the first time. We are here tonight to talk about the proposed purchase agreement for the library board, which is an independent entity, to take ownership of the current library facility. And for anybody who's followed it over the last few years, the short version of that history is the goal would be for the library to take ownership and control, make some improvements, ask the city for help with funding if it needs help with funding through bonding, and separate off the cemetery, which is the city's, and allow for an access easement along the library's parking lot so that any visitors to the cemetery, any maintenance that needs to be done, all of those things can be accomplished. There has been some confusion in the last week or so about which version of the purchase agreement was approved. I have been advised by their lawyer, but I don't take that as official, that the version approved by the library board at its last meeting is the version both sides, library and city, approved last year with no changes. I mean, there might be a period here or a comma there that I'll have to fix, but for no substantive changes of any kind. So that would be, I don't know if it has a date on it or I think it's the November 13th, if you see a handwritten date on the first page of it. That should be the one. I would defer to the library if they're here tonight to tell us for sure that that's the one, because I've asked their lawyer, is there any chance they could update their minutes to be a little more clear? The minutes just said approved as presented, and we can't tell from that motion what was presented. Maybe it's an attachment or an addendum to the minutes, but obviously none of us can confirm that. So it looks like someone is here to help us through that part of the equation. Assuming, though, that those facts hold, it appears tonight that you would be in a position as council to either move to approve the agreement that they have approved, move to postpone if you need more information or more detail or changes, or move to reject it if you don't feel comfortable with it yet. So those would be your options this evening, and I'm here for any questions I can help you with on that side of it.
I guess we'll start with Marlene. You can clarify which agreement we should be.
That's the one, November 13th.
The one dated November 13th, 2024. So there was some confusion.
There was,
Okay. And,
straightened out.
all right. So, and I wasn't here in 2023 when this agreement was passed, so that agreement, and this, we agreed in principle you sent over a contract, this is it, and then this is the same one that was sent in 2023.
Yes, and I've provided all of you with a summary, hopefully in plain English enough, for the different terms that are in here, and it has not and should not have changed from that agreement that you're referring to, which I believe was May of '23, if memory serves.
Okay.
It was 5.5 days before the truck.
Before the
To
accident.
the
It
library.
was right before the accident, yes.
All right. Councilmember Baranski.
Yes. Thank you, first of all, for helping to clean up the confusion so that it is crystal clear that the motion that was made last month has been accepted by the library board.
Yes.
As I view it, based on our actions last year and our actions at the last meeting, we now should be in escrow. And we should, I don't know if we need a motion for it, but to me, I'm going to make a motion to have the city administration and city attorney complete the closing.
Second.
Well, is that the motion?
Yep.
Okay. Is that good? Mr. City Attorney?
I'd want to back up a step.
Okay.
So first, I'd like council to reaffirm its approval of this agreement. I'd like to hear that council supports and approves the agreement that's in front of you this evening. Once that's been approved, then city management and myself have authority to execute that and get that done with the attorney for the library board. And that document then will control how we move forward to closing. Because it already has in there a blank line for a closing date. The parties work that out based on the walkthrough we have to do, the agreements we have to reach, and then a closing date with the title company. So there are steps that have to happen. The motion could certainly be what has been made, but I think it's important that we put the horse first here and get the agreement approved.
But I guess I thought, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine. And then if there's direction that follows approval, we go from there. But I would like a reaffirmation or a reapproval, if that's where you're thinking, is it has been approved in the past.
Okay.
There was confusion about whether it's been abandoned. The parties, there had the delays with the accident and the reconstruction. So now that they have reapproved it, I'd like us to do the same, if that's still the motive or the goal of the council.
Okay, I'm going to withdraw my motion,
Okay.
I'll withdraw my second.
and I will make a new motion in the spirit of what has been previously offered by the city. I think even before I was on council, this offer was years before. I would make a motion to ratify and proceed forward with the agreement as now presented from our spring of 2023 offer to the library and acceptance on November 13th, 2024.
Second.
Okay.
And I'd like to strike from the record November 13th, 2024. I believe they acted on it a few days ago.
Dated, yeah.
Yeah,
sorry.
it has that handwritten date. We're going to remove that handwritten date because today will be the effective date because council's approving it today.
So I will amend the motion to say acted upon by the library on whatever the date of their meeting was.
5th.
No, November 5th, yes.
Just a clarification, do you need another motion to execute? Or
No, I mean, sometimes it's customary to say, and direct the city manager to take all necessary steps to execute the agreement as written. I think it's understood here tonight that once it's approved, it's self-executing. We'll get to work.
I wrote down possibly two. Okay. Thank you. That was motion by Baranski, seconded by Shornack. Councilmember Odell?
Okay, so just to refresh everybody, we're giving it to them for $1, but they have to make so many improvements to get occupancy, right? They roughly about, if I read right, 3.7 million. Is that correct about the cost? Yes.
No.
Okay.
We have received the inspection from the city that we were talking about the last time we were here, and it's going to be about $1 million worth of repairs to get the certificate of occupancy. There's other things that we want to do, but those particular repairs will only be about $1 billion.
Okay, so you can get back into the building and operate.
Well, yes. However, we are going to be coming to you, we are most likely, my board hasn't approved this one yet either. Our meeting is Monday. But we are most likely going to be coming to you for a bond for building a second floor. And the first floor is going to have to be shored up in order to support a second floor. It wasn't built for that. And I don't know if some of that work needs to be done within the first floor of the library, which I would assume does, we're not going to move back in until the first floor is ready to go, because, it's just all the kinds of interruptions to business and so forth. So,
To do the $1 million that you need to reopen it up.
Yes.
Does the library have those funds?
We do.
Now, or do you need the bond before you can do that?
no, we do not. We have the money to move back in. We collected the millage the last 2 years, and we have that money invested, and it's ready to go.
Okay. So you're
Waiting
looking
for
for
a
the
building to
bond.
spend it on.
You're looking for the bond down the road
Yes.
a little bit for
Well,
the
no,
extra
actually,
stuff
we're
that you
going to
wanted.
start with the bond process right away.
Right.
And hopefully we can get going. I don't know if this is going to happen, but hopefully we can get going with the repairs that we're going to be paying cash for while we're going through the bond process, and then go right into construction.
So you're walking and chewing gum and saying.
I'm sure it's going to go exactly that way.
That's the, right. So, but to get it where you want it, you're going to need the bond. We get, with the millage that was passed
Yes.
a year or two ago, the funding's guaranteed for the next
Oh, yes.
15 years or so.
We have adequate, more than adequate.
So there's no chance of default on a bond or anything like that because it's guaranteed to come in. So that's what I wanted to think. My question for you, Don, because it has that reverter clause, does that cause any problems with the bonding? Because it technically isn't 100% theirs, right, until they finish that. Does that complicate bonding at all?
I don't believe it does. We could talk to bond counsel about that to be crystal clear, but the way I see the reverter clause is so long as they don't default or do anything that would trigger it, i.e. stop being a library, it should never come into play. But let's play that out, worst case scenario. For whatever reason, they all hang it up and say, we're not going to be a library anymore, and that happens in the next 20 years. The bond should be paid off either in 10 or 15, because depending on if we do an amendment later that we're going to talk about, right now we're at a 10-year cap anyway, so it should be done in 10. Nobody can envision the library hanging it up in the next 10 years, but let's, again, worst case scenario, they hang it up in 4 years, 6 years, 2 years, and say, nope, we're out, no more library. City gets the building back. Yes, the debt is still there, but it's still going to be paid through the revenue that's coming to the library, because that millage continues to exist to pay for the library operations and improvements. So in theory, at least, that revenue's still there, the bonds are still getting paid. We just don't have anybody operating a library in that moment in time until someone else steps up and decides to resume that operation, if ever.
Okay.
Okay, city manager.
We actually do have bond counsel in the audience, and it looked like I did see him nodding his head that it wouldn't cause any problems.
In court, we require the person to answer yes or no. Nodding is, so, well, would you like to say, I don't know who you are back there. Could you come up here and just clarify this? There's a lot of people here interested in this, and we're not holding it to,
No, I mean, again, the scenario, as the city attorney has indicated, you're issuing bonds to finance.
Microphone.
Microphone.
Oh, sorry. You're issuing bonds to finance an asset that'll be utilized by the library or city. So to the extent it's no longer used for a library, it's still a city asset, or it would revert to a city asset. So the bonds can remain outstanding, and you pay the debt service from, what sources are available to pay debt service on the bond. So it doesn't necessarily impact the bonds directly by how that building is ultimately utilized, as long as it's still for a tax-exempt purpose.
okay?
So they can remain outstanding, and the city can ultimately, if that scenario ever occurs, utilize that building for another purpose.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Baranski.
Yeah, I just want to make one exception to, I think, what you said, and I could be wrong, but how could we collect a tax if there isn't a library? I, as a citizen, am not going to want to pay 2 mills if there's no library in existence. So that's a question, right?
Yeah, it's a fascinating question because the millage exists and it's good for however many years we have left on it. And it's going to be assessed for the purpose of, to your point, operating a public library, correct?
Right.
But I believe, I'd have to look at the language. The language is broad enough that it's not just for the purpose of operating, it's for the purpose of the library. And one of the library's debts and obligations
Okay.
would be the bonds.
So that'd be the caveat, because they have the bond debt, we as a city would decrease our risk by doing it that way.
And there'd be nothing stopping the city too from starting its own library, right? And not doing it a different way than the way they do it, which is the elected board, right? There's other ways to create a library.
Okay. I just don't want to,
Yeah, the current library's been in 1963, 64.
One of those two.
Yeah, it was by petition, I believe. And there's 6 different, I've learned too much about how libraries are formed in Public Act 164, 1877. And so, great. Any other questions from council about this? All right, I'll take it out to the audience. Any member of audience would like to speak on this matter? Come on up. Yes, just have a seat. And speak into the microphone, it picks up your voice a lot better.
Yes, my name is Father Oscar Saavedra. I am at the church. I am in the high or tallest building in the town, I guess. Church with a high steeple. I've been interested in the library building ab initio. From the beginning, we acquired the building of the church. We acquired the building of the church from the city itself a while ago. We started there in 1998, December. And we have been interested in the library. Well, I just wanted to say today I'm interested. If the library doesn't want to take the building, we would like to take the building. You have seen the church. We have maintained it very nicely. People are happy with us. I guess we could take care of the library itself, the same, the building. And, well, I'm happy that the library will keep the library building because they have been good neighbors. I hope they are saying the same about us. And one thing, I guess, if I could say now, we have a conflict of uses, especially the library. To me, as they are getting big in their programs. Sometimes we run with problems with the parking lot, especially last year or two. The year we're there, the 22 for Halloween thing, it was an overflow of cars there. I even called the police officers, and then they said we can do nothing because there were probably, I don't know how many cars, I could not count it, but they all went to our parking lot in the church. I don't even have a space for me to park in the library, in the church parking lot. Also, they don't have the space for their programs. They want to do movies at night. It is in the dark. They don't have the space for the flinting. I don't know how they call it, where they bring animals outside. So it is not appropriate for them to have the building, to be there as a library. I guess they would like to have a library like the Clinton Township. It's like a state-of-the-art building, but for them to bring that building to what it has to be a library, it will take a lot of money, and it will be difficult for them. But if they keep it, they are good neighbors, but I would like if anyone could direct me, where can I state my concerns about being us as a church there with the parking spaces. They come to our parking spaces. I will say we use the libraries too, but it is on a Sunday. It's on a Sunday where they are not open. I cannot tell anything to the people because it's a public place. People could park anywhere, but it doesn't work the same in the other way when they come into the church because we had to pay insurance for that, and we had to concern of the safety of people coming in, so it's difficult. Well, if this contract fail, I will be there to acquire the library. It's open for business, for grabs, or whatever you want to call it. But if anyone could direct me, how can we fix this problem of the parking spaces, or so the police is happy too, because they were concerned children running across 14 miles to the Lutheran church and then to other streets to our church. It was kind of conflict, so I was concerned about the safety of the children and people coming for Halloween treats.
And normally we don't respond. What I can tell you is the lady next to you is the
Yes.
library board president. And,
Yes.
and since the library is a separate entity from the city,
Yes.
they are the ones that you would work with on that. And,
Well-
and public safety as well, so.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience regarding this matter? All right, I'm ready to take a vote. Can we do a roll call vote, please?
Absolutely. Councilmember Baranski.
Yes.
Mayor Lesich.
Yes.
Councilmember Brodell.
Yes.
Councilmember Perry.
Yes.
Councilmember Shornack.
Yes.
Councilmember Stein.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sutherland.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just heard a sigh of relief, and Thank you, Marlene. Thank you. All right, 7C, Industrial Park Roads. City Manager.
All right, as you know, we have been working on trying to find a funding mechanism for the roads in the industrial park for a number of years. In the last year, we've kind of had some movement on this. One of the big things that we have received is a $4 million grant from the state for those particular roads. I have been working with a group from the industrial park regarding trying to figure out how to come up with the rest of the funding. We do have representatives from the industrial park here tonight as well. They seem to have consensus to pay up to 25% of the cost of the road repairs, which currently are estimated around 16 million. What we are looking for tonight is to start moving forward with this project. There are 3 motions that I have recommended for starting to move forward with this project and to stay on schedule for being able to get on hopefully next spring's construction schedule for the roads. So the first motion would be to set a public hearing for December 12th to establish that special assessment district. We have been through this process last year. So this is the first step for going through the SAD process, is that you're putting together the district. So you're notifying the property owners in the area that you are looking to do a special assessment to each of the properties. One reason why we are going back and doing this step again is because there have been a number of ownership changes, and we certainly don't want to be in a position where we don't follow the proper steps and procedures for Another motion for tonight would be to authorize the city manager to work with bond counsel to begin facilitating the process to procure the bonds in the amount of the 8.5 million, which includes the up to 4 million that they would pay, as well as the $4.5 million gap. Talking about that, one of the things that we have done is solicited the Office of John James for an additional 4 to 5 million for federal funding to hopefully offset that additional cost. The other motion would be to direct AEW Consulting Engineer to start some of the design work for the bid documents for the industrial park roads.
Okay. So, who should we start? Mr. Vigneron, could you come up? All right. Councilmember Baranski.
So if I understand your presentation, of assuming a $16 million price tag, which is, as previously represented, the Cadillac of high-end prices, and hopefully we're going to get a Chevy, but it's going to last like a Bronco times a Ford times a whatever, but that the price is really actually purposefully high so that he looks like a rock star when he comes in at 13 or 14 million, right? That's how I like my contractors to work, right? But the proposal from the industrial sub, which is not binding because this is just a representative group, and is that they would pay they're comfortable paying 25% of the 16 million?
25% up to 4 million.
Okay, so we had previously agreed to commit, I think, I wasn't here at that meeting, but it was $3.5 million? Correct. So we have a $4+ million gap.
Right, so the 3.5 million is committed from the funds that we have in general fund.
Right.
So the 4.5 million would be funded over 15 years.
Or 20 or whatever.
Oh, that we would take a bond.
Correct.
So we would special assess.
Right, special assess.
25%.
5, and of that, they would be responsible for up to 25%, and then we would be responsible for the rest over the term.
Mr. Bond Counsel, could you come up and sit next to Mr. Vigneron?
Hold on, they're only agreeing to 25% of the 8.5, not 25%, okay, because that's what you just said.
No.
Yeah, okay.
25% of the total, so up to 4 million.
Got it. I just want to make sure.
Okay. All right. Did you have some more? Your name again, sir?
Tom Colas with Miller County.
Tom Colas. Okay. You got 2 guys there, so when you speak, move the microphone towards your face because it's not the greatest microphone.
Okay, so back to my questions before we talk about which path to go down. And this subcommittee group of people, this special assessment would be the entire industrial sub, so they'd have to do the same thing and get the buy-in and all of that, right?
Yeah, the only way that you can specially assess everyone in the park is to do all of the roads in the park. So if.
Right, right. And what was the rule again if they object? In other words, if this subcommittee doesn't speak for the industrial sub as a
So the
whole?
process that we would go through, so we would be setting the public hearing for the district. The next public hearing that we would have would be to set the roll, so that's the amount. And then after setting the roll, there is a period of referendum whereby if, I believe it's 50% of the property, more than 50% of the property owners appeal, then it would not move forward.
There's nothing we can do if more than 50% object
That's a city attorney question.
of council.
Sorry, it's a supermajority vote, so you need 5 instead of 4.
Oh, okay, okay. So we can still do it over their objection, as long as 5 council members are willing to do it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
'Cause that brings me to a question I had. A special assessment district is 50% plus 1 if you're just counting parcels. If we are doing it by linear feet or lineal feet or however it is that a different?
The measurement is by amount, so 50% of the amount of money.
Thank you. Which is essentially by foot times the rate per foot. Okay. And I think it's key is that the reason we're doing this at this time is that in order to get this project off the ground, we would all like to complete it. And in order to keep everyone in the special assessment district, we need to establish it now and then create a plan and that's the item. The third item is Mr. Vigneron would be doing the design work for the entire park. Is that correct? Is that accurate, I guess I should say?
Yes, that is accurate. To Ms. Baranski's point, these are our estimates at this time. I had another engineer look at the estimate that we prepared a year ago, and the numbers were starting to come up a little bit. We still feel like they're pretty good. We've got a healthy amount of contingency in there, but we also had this anticipated for 3 years. We also understand the park. It sounds like currently would support a 2-year program. It's a little bit more intensive on their, or impactful to their businesses, but this was something that they presented to us as a preference over 3 years.
And doing it over 2 years rather than 3 could potentially save us costs that increases in year 3.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Odell?
Yeah, that's my main question, because originally it was like 18.5 million. So by doing it over 2 years, that's what reduces it down to 16 million?
Yeah, I think the memo that was included in your packet was prepared prior to the I'll say detailed estimate that we had presented as part of the first special assessment hearing. Since then, we got into a lot more detail. The memo that we presented to Mr. Ragsdale was a really high level $18.5 million estimate to reconstruct the entire sub.
So you're pretty confident on that 16 million?
We still feel like there's enough contingency
obviously
in there
contingency and stuff, but I
yes,
mean.
yeah.
Okay.
I think the other thing that was funded primarily with a bond. So that higher cost would have included additional interest charges. We are now bringing that down at least half. And hopefully, if we can get some money from Washington, that would help, which leads me to my question for Mr. Colas. So if we start this at $8.5 million, but we end up getting some kind of funding from the federal government, would that present any problems to you, and because we would not need all that money?
Yeah, so the question becomes timing as to when you issue the bonds and for how much, right? So typically when we structure a bond issue and we're issuing it out to the market, it has if it's for more than a 10-year bond issue, so say it's 15 up to 20 years, it'll have what's called a call protection so that you can't repay bonds early in the first 10 years. After that, the city can refinance or pay them off at any time at no premium. To the extent that there's additional funds that become available during that period of time that can only be used for that purpose, that would cause a tax problem without the ability to actually take out the bonds. So what we could do if we we could structure a transaction, and we would work with the city's financial advisor as to try to build in an earlier call provision. Now, what ends up happening is that while that might be possible, there's typically a cost for that. So to have that type of flexibility and being able to redeem debt early, the investor will say, okay, I'm willing to give you that right, but it's going to be at a price, which means the interest rate. It'll be, there'll be some cost. And there might be some investors that say, I'm not interested in that at all. So it might limit the pool of investors. But you can structurally deal with that in certain ways. There are certain types of sales, of who we sell the bonds to, that might offer more flexibility than others, but they might be they might be limited as to the duration of bond issue they want to buy. So for example, there's two of the possible ways of selling bonds is you do what we call a public offering, and you just put a notice in the bond buyer, which is a national publication that says the city's issuing bonds for this purpose, they're going to receive bids on this date, and this is the structure. And typically, that's the market where they'll want the more standard type of provisions, the 10-year before you can redeem bonds early and the like. You might be able to inch that up to 8 years without paying a price. But if you wanted to go 5 years or 4 years or something shorter than that, that market will not respond well to that typically. So the other alternative is maybe you privately place it with a financial institution. It could be a bank, it could be some other financial institution, who tend to provide more favorable structuring terms, but not necessarily more favorable rates. And some of them don't want to hold debt that's longer than a certain period of time. So most of those institutions don't want to hold bonds that are 20 years. You might get away with a 15-year deal because the average might be something less than 15 years. So they might have their own internal policies to what they want to hold for their own debt. So that's really a structuring question that we could maybe work our way around and get to, like, hey, if we really think this is going to be a possibility, there's really one of two ways of doing it. One, you wait to know what that is. And if you don't know, if that's not going to come around in the time when we actually go out and issue bonds, and then we think that's a possibility, then we structure to allow for that. Or maybe we build in an extraordinary redemption that says, hey, if we get federal funding for this, we can call bonds early, and maybe there's a premium that you allocate to that. So we can try to deal with that, but there's a little bit of a give and take as to how we're selling and what impact that might have from a pricing standpoint.
Okay. And I know you're up next, Councilmember Shornack. So the city is putting in $3.5 million. We've committed to that. So if we got this additional money that was directed directly to this project, we could just put it to that, and we could take that $3.5 million from our general fund and pay that bond over time. It would reduce. So we would, instead of the $3.5 million in cash we were going to put into the project at the front end, we could put that towards this bond over time. Is that?
Yeah, how you allocate those funds is really up to the city, so that's a possibility, right?
Yeah, I'm looking at options and.
Right, so the options are you contribute that now and reduce how much you borrow. Or you say, okay, at least I know I've got these funds to pay debt service.
Right.
During that period of time. So it really becomes a budgeting question, and.
Okay. It becomes a budgeting question, which can be solved rather fairly straightforward. And the other question is, so if we start and have you start looking at $8.5 million, can we, if we get this money in 90 days, if we get announcement we're getting that, can we lower that bond amount?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the process will actually it'll take a decent amount of time, because what will happen is there'll be two resolutions that'll come before council. One is the first one is a notice of intent. And we've talked about these before of, hey, if we intend on issuing bonds for this purpose, the first step is you publish a notice in the paper that says we intend on issuing bonds for this purpose. We're going to pledge this the general fund will be pledged to secure the bonds, even though we may utilize a portion of the special assessment bonds to repay them, or other city funds on hand to repay some of the debt service. But with that comes a right of referendum. So you've got a 45-day period where a petition could get circulated and submitted within 45 days, signed by not less than 10% of the registered electors. If that happens, then you can't proceed without actually putting it to a vote.
Okay.
But if that doesn't happen, then we come back for an actual authorization. So just publishing a notice and that's we'll set a not to exceed amount. We'll come back with, okay, where are we in the process? Do we have bids in place? Do we know exactly what the cost is before we actually go out and either authorize or sell? Because there are times where we'll actually authorize still a not to exceed amount, and we reduce that when we actually know before we actually sell the bonds. You will authorize, sometimes we delegate that authority to the city administration to, we can issue up to this amount, but obviously it's up to if we know that the cost is going to be less, we as your bond counsel will not let you actually issue bonds for more than that. So we're going to be looking at that also and saying, okay, what's your cost? And before we go out and actually sell bonds, we want to know a pretty good sense of what that cost is going to be, or at least to know that what we issue will be needed to pay for project costs. Because what we don't want to have happen is we issue, let's just say $8.5 million for bonds, and we only need 6.5. Because now we've burdened the tax-exempt bond market with debt, and the IRS doesn't look favorably for that. So we'll have to do something with that bond proceeds. And again, these bonds are going to be issued specifically for that purpose.
Okay, Councilmember Shornack.
Okay, so, just to put it in layman's terms, what you're saying is if we go through the bond process and we use the money from bonds, there's a prepayment penalty. So if we want to prepay it, whatever duration of time, that we will be penalized either by interest and or by some kind of fee.
Unless you're prepaying after that 10 year, after that,
No,
whatever
yep,
that period
no,
of
no.
time is.
I'm saying, like, say it's a 10-year bond, right? And we want to pay it at 8. So you're saying there's a prepayment penalty is what you're saying.
Not all the time. So it depends on who you are, what investor you're talking with, right? So if it's, the bank may say,
Well, I know, but bonds and banks are different.
well, no, because banks buy bonds.
Okay, so you're saying that if a bank buys the bonds, instead of because what I'm thinking is, instead of per se, like bonding, when you're saying banks, I'm thinking that we're getting, let's just say a mortgage, although it's
No,
not a
you're not.
mortgage.
So you're
It's
not
like-
allowed to do that?
You're not allowed to just go.
You can't just go to the bank and get a loan.
Okay,
As a-
so
as a
we're not allowed to
municipal
as a
entity,
municipal, okay, that's what I was gonna say.
You can only issue debt pursuant to what state law says you can issue debt.
Gotcha,
The way that
okay,
you issue debt most typically is by issuing bonds. The bank can participate in that by buying your bonds.
Gotcha.
So it may look like a loan, and they may think internally that it's a loan.
Right, on
But
the-
essentially, they're buying your bond.
Right.
And it has
And
a
are guaranteed
particular
to pay.
with that interest, correct, okay.
Right, and with that structure.
So you could, if we directed you that we wanted to go more the way of, per se, maybe a bank buying the bonds, so that we wouldn't have a prepayment penalty, is that something that you can work into that? Because I have a big problem, I just don't even understand that. I mean, I do, because I'm in finance, but I just think it's ridiculous to have a prepayment penalty at any time. I understand that they're looking for the long investment, but at the same time, you're also talking about people who are looking for a shorter investment. So I guess I want to see different ways to finance this, where it's going to make more sense to us in case, something happens and somebody wins the lottery and says, hey, look I want to pay this off,
So when we get to that point of authorizing the bonds, that bond authorizing resolution indicates how you want to sell the bonds.
But you'll give us different,
Your financial advisor, who's not me, since I'm your bond counsel, will provide those scenarios for you as
Okay,
to.
that's what I want, different
If we
scenarios.
want to go this route, understanding the restrictions of, if we want to go the private placement route where we're going to a bank or financial institution, we're probably not going to have a 20-year financing. You're going to have something shorter than that, but it'll probably have more favorable terms, including the ability to prepay with shorter windows and maybe at no penalty at all, right?
right?
So
That's what I would prefer.
that will be something that will be presented to the administration and then ultimately for you to review as part of how do we want to authorize these bonds and how do we want to sell them.
Okay. So then, I feel differently than you, Mr. Lesage, when it comes to, so we have the 4 million from the state, we have the 3.5 that we've decided that we put in, and if we are having the special assessment and they agree to the special assessment, and they all get on board with that, I would rather take that 7.5 and not pay interest on that, and then have their special assessment money pay the bond debt in the meantime, because I don't want to pay any more interest than we have to pay, especially because by the time we get this all done and the special assessment's done and we pay this bond, the reality is, once this bond is done, guess what? This whole process is going to start right over again, where we're going to, unless we are mindfully allocating every year, obviously, depending on what our budget fund and our funds are and our budget is for the year, that we need to make sure that we are allocating correctly for future infrastructure repair for those roads as well, and including them with the city roads that we have, like on the Paisley rating. And I want to make sure that now that we're moving this forward to repair what has not been repaired in forever, that we have a plan moving forward with the city and all the roads, including the industrial park, so that we don't run into this situation per se again. I'm not saying it wouldn't happen just because who knows what our finances are going to be. That's a whole different ballgame. What I'm stating is we need to make sure that we are including all of the streets within our city boundaries, obviously, other than the ones that the county has to maintain, that we are making sure that we are setting ourselves up for the future. Because I can say, for the time that I've been here, and Mr. Lessig and I were at meetings years before that, the biggest problem in this city that I've seen is that no one's forward-thinking and everybody's just trying to fix today. But tomorrow will inevitably be here. And inevitably, it will be more expensive then. So if we are not planning for the future, for all of our infrastructure needs, this is just going to be, a revolving door that is never going to end well for anybody. So I want to make sure, at least that this council is on board with making sure that we are putting together a plan for all the roads, again, that are located in the city moving forward, that we are proactively making sure we are taking care of what we need to take care of for the future.
Okay.
So.
All right, to bring it back to the public hearing and the bonding, I agree with you, and I think I just said it differently about you said you disagree with me about the amount. We need options. And because there's this possibility that we'll get some funding, and we need to have a window to know what we can do, and so that we can make a wise decision. And that's all. So, any other questions by council on this? Councilmember Baranski.
So I just want to confirm a couple things, kind of shaping in my head where I think we are all going to maybe head. So is there a way to structure, and hear me out, don't assume anything with my questions, they're just questions. The project, 16 million, and it ends up being 14 million, but we have to sell the bonds ahead of time, right? We just don't sell the last of them. Is that where we get that savings? Does that make sense? The first question I'm asking.
The savings on not issuing the debt and incurring the interest?
The $2 million in expenses that we aren't going to incur.
Oh, that's a question for you, Mike.
Well, yeah.
It's a construction question, I think.
Well, I think it's kind of a little bit of both.
Yeah, I think it's more for you, actually.
What you're saying is.
Or maybe the finance guy.
Our estimate is a little high, and when all the ink dries on the final project costs, you're something less than
Right.
$16 million that everybody's anticipated. From there, I believe you've already issued the bonds and have locked those in, I think is the question, 2 years down the road. So how do you roll that back? I think, I'll leave it to Mr. Collins. but-
Yeah.
I guess the question is, when are you bidding the project?
Well, and maybe that's it. So when we bid it, we lock in what the real rate's going to be, right? Ish, knowing there's cost overruns and blah, 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 blah.
Yes,
But-
we'll have a much better handle on anticipated project costs after.
And you're not issuing the bonds until then.
So typically, we wait until we get bids in, but we don't always. Because again, part of the time, sometimes the question is, we know we have a project that's more than what we're issuing bonds for. So we're going to need
Right.
all the bond proceeds for that. That's a different question than we might get additional funds and we might have to reduce the bond size at some point. But ultimately, I do think in a perfect world, we would issue bonds after we got bids in, so we have a firm cost.
Okay.
Again, there'll be contingencies, there's always contingencies in those projects, and that's fine.
Because I'm trying to reduce the amount of interest and expense that we pay as a city if we bond out a portion of this project. And my other question is, because I was just doing some math, if it's 16 million, if it's 14 million, if they contribute 25, 30, 35%, what that looks like. And then if it's $4 million on a $16 million project is different from $4 million on a $14 million project in terms of the special assessment district. And knowing that at the end of the day, yes, we're hoping to get federal funds, I don't include that in my analysis. I think that there's additional money within our general fund that we hopefully at the end of the year will be able to allocate to this. I don't think it's $4 million. I think maybe we can squeeze another million because we were pretty conservative in my opinion. But I'm just thinking if we squeeze a little bit more on the SAD and you do a really good job of bringing it in down and we do a little bit more, that the net bond can be less. But if we start it with the up to 8, you can do it and we just don't we issue what we actually need, not to exceed 8.
Right.
Or 8.5 or whatever the math is. Okay, so I am very comfortable with going down that path to get this going, knowing that we know where everyone's going. We know we'd have to have a vote of 5. We're trying to get buy-in from everyone, but everyone's asking for money. I mean, today is we need this, we need this, we need this. We're going to talk about police officers. We're talking about DPW. We got to get the roads done. We got to fix the roads, but this is the start of it, and I like it. But yeah, so that's my thoughts.
I just want to clarify one thing. My understanding of the industrial park is their proposal is up to $4 million. So if it came in at 14, they would lower their quarter too. Just wanted to make sure for the viewing public and the folks out there.
And
The
that
other
was my
thing-
point, that it was
Yeah.
very different.
I just want to make that fine point. The other thing is, and I agree with, this is a one-time opportunity to get this done. And sometimes you got to roll the dice. We're not even rolling the dice. We've got a pretty good hand right now. And sorry for the metaphors, but this is a one-time thing. We can make this industrial park a great facility for the next 30 years. Cross our fingers that it lasts longer than the last one. And I think that's something we don't get often as an opportunity, and I'm willing to take that chance as well. Any other questions or comments from council? I'm going to ask Mr. Imler or a representative of the industrial park to come up and if they want to say anything about this.
Is he here? I didn't see him.
He's back there. He's in the camo.
Can you not?
Very.
You missed
Ken, come on up. Or Mr. Imler, if you could. Thank you, gentlemen. No, he's part of the triad there, so I just wanted to, and I didn't see Jeff Siciliano there, too.
I didn't know you could see me. I was camouflaged.
Yeah,
Dana
okay.
couldn't see you,
That's what I
but,
said.
Is that ever something that's
all
true?
right, good evening, gentlemen.
I am wearing the wrong colors, I know.
All right, Jeff, could you identify yourself for the folks here?
Jeff Siciliano, 34673 Bennett Drive.
Okay. And Mr. Imler, we can't see you, but you can hear you.
Ken Imler, Deluxe Development, 18500 Malin.
Okay, you're an integral part of this. Do you have any comments about what was said tonight? Do you have any disagreements with the conversation from the body or AEW?
Well, I mean, I can tell you this, that I received 60 to 70 yes votes and two to three, I'll call them no votes, but they weren't like no way votes. They were just more curious. So there is support for what we've mentioned for you guys. I don't know how much support there'd be if it changes, if it were to go up percentage-wise or something. But right now, I think we're in good shape. I'm never going to speak openly or and promise anything about anybody in the industrial park, what they might do or say, but I'm pretty confident, I think Ken can agree, that we've got a pretty good consensus on this.
Thank you. All right. I'll make the motion. I might need your help, Mr. Denault. Motion to set a public hearing for December 12th, 2024 to establish a special assessment district for the industrial park roads, including Malin Boulevard, Commerce Road, Riviera Drive, Dorica Drive, James P. Pompo Drive, Cross Drive, Mike C. Court, Vermander Court, or Drive, and Bennett Drive, in the amount of $8.5 million over a term of 20 years.
Is it not to exceed?
Or this is for the special assessment district? So it would be
That's what it's
up to $4 million,
Yeah.
and the 25% of the project, how do we add that into the lane? I saw the,
You're making me work tonight. Okay. You're on the right track, I think, with the motion. The motion is to set the public hearing, as you stated. And you're trying to articulate in that motion that the public hearing would be to consider a special assessment district that would be assessed in an amount not to exceed $4 million, correct? What we haven't discussed is the term.
right?
And I think that's an important conversation. We've heard some numbers tonight, and since you've given me this floor, I'll take it. We've heard some numbers tonight, 10 years, 15 years, 8 years, 20 years. By city ordinance, we are limited to a 10-year term. It's an easy fix. Council can adopt a new ordinance and just change that out because it's been there forever. There's nothing stopping us from going up to 15 years because the charter allows a maximum of 15 years. So we can never get past 15.
Okay.
Charter amendment will be required. With that said, the charter says, though, council sets the term up to 15. So if we wanted to set it at 15, 12, 13, 10, we already set it at 10 years and years ago. So we do have to have that conversation. What term is of a liking to the industrial park and to city council? That should probably, I think, be part of your motion, because then when we do the public notice, it puts everybody on notice of the proposal. Up to $4 million, and for a term of X number of years, or installments, however you want to word it.
All right.
And then that should cover your motion for this round.
Up to, instead of in the,
For which part?
where it says, in the amount of $4 million over a term of blank. Should I say up to?
For 25% of the project cost, up to a maximum of.
For 25% of the project costs, up to $4 million. Or not to exceed $4 million.
Either one is fine. It's just putting the world on notice of what the proposal looks like. We won't know the project amount, obviously, until we get that report to put together.
So I read from the recommended motion, it said 20 years. So we would have to change an ordinance to do that.
We can't get to 20. The farthest we can get is 15, and right now we're stuck at 10.
Okay, the charter says 15.
Charter says 15 is our max. The ordinance says 10 because that's what the council 50 years ago said. We'll go with 10 for right now. We've got up to 15 if we need it.
Okay.
Mr.
Yes.
Mayor, yes. So we talked in advance a little bit about the term, and for the industrial park, to make all those people yeses, we felt that 15 years was easier on some of the facilities. How was that?
I'm fine with that. You're paying that $4 million.
Up to.
Yes, we're paying up to, yes, thank you. That will be ingrained in my brain. So, and then the other part of the bond would be our 15 years. Are we comfortable with that? Then I guess we can. So let me try that motion again. Motion to set a public hearing for December 12th, 2024, to consider a special assessment district for the industrial park roads, including Mayland Boulevard, Commerce Road, Riviera Drive, Dorica Drive, James P. Pompo Drive, Cross Drive, Mike C. Court, Vermander Drive, and Bennett Drive, for 25% of the project up to $4 million over a term of 15 years.
Term of up to 15.
For a term of up to, well, the proposal at the moment is for a term of 15, correct? So we should put the world on notice that it's a term, the proposal being discussed is 15 unless you think it might be adjusted at the meeting.
I think we should go with what they said, because if we say up to and then we come later and say, let's make it 10, they're not going to be happy.
Yeah, and if you say 15, there's nothing stopping you at the special assessment hearing from changing it. Let's say you get a vast, overwhelming support for 12 or something.
Or a term up to 15 years.
That's fine, too. Either one.
All right, that's my motion.
Second.
All right, motion by Lessig, seconded by Councilmember Odell. Council comment. We got a lot. You
I just have a question.
have a question.
But I like to wait my turn and use the
All
button.
right, yes, sir.
The answer guy.
I know, right? Now I'm the question guy, and the question is probably more for Mike Vigneron and our city clerk, August Gitschlag. The ordinance requires that public notice be mailed out, first-class mail, to every property and published in the paper a minimum of 10 days prior to December 12th. So with that in mind, and I don't know where we're at in the preparation of the backup report that has to be part of this, because it has to be available for inspection. I don't know if we're in a position to have the hearing on December 12th, and I don't want to put us in a position to fail if there's still a lot of paperwork on Mike Vigneron or the assessor's end. I know we did it all last year, but I don't know how much work is involved in getting it done again this year.
You're going to make me read that thing again.
I might.
No, just say the motion I already made.
No, I got it.
Thank you. So I think the question is, notice has to go out no later than December 2nd, and we have to have,
That's be mailed out 10 days prior to the hearing, so December 2nd. And if that's a weekday, I don't know. And then, I think it's a Monday. And then it also has to be published, which means we have a publication deadline to get it to the, whatever paper we're using these days, probably around Thanksgiving week or even earlier. So I'm just curious if that's setting us up for a problem if we don't have the backup materials done like we had last year.
yeah, I feel pretty comfortable that most of those backup materials are going to remain unchanged with the exception of the dollar amount that would be published for each parcel. I did some, I guess, preliminary work on that today just to kind of see what that looks like. I think we would want to confirm a few things with bond counsel on the interest rate and term and payment amount that would be responsible for each individual property owner, and put that into a part of the publication. I think we're okay with that.
You had a question whether the clerk would be ready.
Oh, just in terms of capacity to get the mailings done and get it to the paper.
That's not a problem.
Comfortable?
That's not a problem.
That's the assessing roles. Are you speaking on behalf of the assessor that they can get that done too? You
Yeah,
think?
we worked pretty close with the assessor the first time around. I believe we've captured accurately all the parcels that are in the industrial park. That'll remain unchanged. Each parcel will be responsible for
Okay.
over whatever term is selected.
So I will leave my motion alone. I think we're good for December 12th. Did we have a second? Councilmember Odell. All right. Any other council comments? You had one.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I thought everyone did, so that's why I was.
Nope.
Okay,
You're
so with the motion, the way it's drafted, does that become a logistical nightmare for the assessor who has to change the amount that's being pulled out because it's up to 25% or $4 million, or not to exceed $4 million, and as that 16 million, right, she's going to calculate it, and then when it, so like, to me, I like easy, simple. That's just my thought, is like, I'm just wondering logistically, right? Like, it's a changing target, how much you're gonna owe. No, right, I'm just saying, it's extra work on our end. We have to reissue the taxes, crunching the numbers as the project comes in, and then if there's cost overrun. That's why I like $4 million. That's why, to me, it's like,
Well, I'm going
it
to
is
take,
what it is at $4 million. It's not, it is what it is at 25% of a project cost. That's my logistical concern.
I understand, and I understand a little bit about special assessment districts for properties. And so each year, we're going to set that, what that assessment is. So we can adjust that each year. Correct? Yes. I mean, each year, we would set the assessment, and it wouldn't get any higher. It would only,
Right, so it would be adjusted, I believe, you're correct, that it would be adjusted based on balance due. In other words, it's sort of an amortization kind of scheduled way of thinking of it. I guess it's a fascinating question I'd probably defer to, I don't know if Mike would know, or the assessor on, is if we establish the district in an amount not to exceed, will we wait until we know the project cost in order to set the final number?
I think that's a fairly typical processes. The final rule isn't established until after.
Right. So I think that we solve that because Mike will have the numbers. Those numbers will then be calculated at the 25% amount. We'll have the district set up, and then the district assessments will go out in that amount.
We have an answer. No.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that statement. So typically, you're setting the roll once you know what your cost is. And then the assessment is a fixed number for the term of the assessment, right? So you're not periodically readjusting that cost because your cost is based on the project as bid.
Well, that's another question. So we have a bid, it comes, we estimate it's $14 million, but we have contingencies or something that comes up to $15 million. They've agreed to pay 25%. Would we be able to adjust that assessment
So
after when the actual project is completed and we know the final cost?
I haven't memorized or looked at the city charter as to a reassessment of cost if they're above the project cost, but if there's a correlation to the townships have a special assessment statute that allows for that additional reassessment of cost, but it's done later on, right? So you're not constantly looking at, like, it's after the project's completed and you realize what the cost is in that circumstance. So I'm not exactly sure if the ordinance provides for that, but that is typically how we will see that, how that happens sometimes.
Okay. But I see, Jeff, it doesn't get, this motion locks you in at not to exceed $4 million and at 25% of the project cost. So it's what we've been talking about all.
Oh, right. So to confirm, and I probably misspoke or made it harder to understand. At the end of this, the treasurer certifies the final cost, what the bill was. And then if there's a deficiency, by law, by ordinance, we as a city can assess in the same ratios against the properties involved. We've got a cap here, so we wouldn't do that if it goes beyond the 25% of the total project cost. But we can additionally assess, so that would be the adjustment that could be made at the end. Similarly, if we don't need everything that's been assessed against the properties for 15 years, it brings too much money in. I believe there's a process there for getting it back to them. I just haven't found it yet. Right?
The ones that I've seen, the ones that I've seen, sorry, have there's like a threshold though. There's,
Is it 5%?
usually it's 5%, yeah.
Okay. Are you satisfied with the answer? Okay. Thank you. This is a complicated.
This is what we want to do. We want to make sure that there are no surprises afterwards, because a lot of times what the city has done in the past before the last couple councils, oh, wait, we didn't know that, and now we're carrying something that I want us all to understand everything and you to understand the risks and that there might be adjustments, and I don't want you coming in and saying, whoa, so. Do it right the first time.
And all tonight we're doing is setting that public hearing. We're setting the language for it. And then you come back on December 12th and we're going to talk about it again. And hopefully you'll have people here that will, from your industrial park, that'll, state their case, state their feelings about it. All right, I think we're done with the engineer and the lawyer. And would any member of the public like to speak on this matter right now? I see none. Let's take a,
I just want to say.
Sure.
I just want to say thank you for this long journey that we've been through. I think I said thank you last time, but I'm saying thank you again. Somebody told me once that a good negotiation, either both parties are really happy or both parties aren't very happy. So we had to do some work on our end to get people to come up with the 25%. So it was a lot of work. I just want to make sure you're aware of that.
and I appreciate you having those conversations.
And we appreciate what you guys are doing for us too. So
This has been a 15-year, I've been watching this TV series for 15 years, and
And Mr. Mayor, I did find the refund clause. They can leave.
we don't have one?
We have a refund clause, yes. And the city manager is correct. If the assessments are more than 5% above what was necessary to pay what they owe for the improvements, then by resolution, the council has to order the excess over that 5% to be applied to their unpaid installments. So, we'll have the bill paid well before their due date is, to pay it all off. So we'll know, and that'll be applied to their unpaid installments. And then if there's anything excess after that, apparently we're supposed to pay them back in cash. So
All right.
that's from 1958.
Okay, let's take a roll. Let's just, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing is set. All right, second motion, to authorize the city manager to work with bond counsel to facilitate the process to procure bonds in the amount of $8.5 million. That was my motion.
Second.
Up to 8.5 million.
Yes. Up to, I'm sorry, up to. All right. Any comment by council? All right. Any member of the audience like to speak on this? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Question.
Nay.
You went way too fast for that one. Question. So up to 8.5. Should that motion perhaps be a little more precise in the sense that it should guide the actual amount after subtracting out the 4 and the 3.5? I wanted to think out loud before you voted on it, because we're not authorized necessarily to procure bonds up to 8.5. We are setting the cap at 8.5, but what would be easier for you in terms of working with numbers? Let's say the total project cost estimate comes in at 14 million. We don't need to go up to 8.5. So precision, I think, matters there in terms of what authority they're giving them to give to you as far as the amount.
I mean, if 8.5 is the maximum, we're going to come back anyways, right? We're going to come back with an actual resolution.
number. Okay.
That's going to authorize a publication that's going to ultimately set the ceiling. So for this motion, I'm comfortable with whatever number, because ultimately we're coming back to you to really refine that or keep it where it's at. Can I make one comment on the motion?
Yes, sir. You have the microphone.
I'm your bond counsel, so I do the legal work, but I don't do the financing stuff, like the running the schedules and making sure, the method. So if you can include in that motion working with your financial advisor too, that's your team.
How would you like me to write that motion?
I think the motion referenced, sorry, I didn't write it down,
It says
working with
motion
bond
to
counsel, I'd
author-
say working with financial advisor and bond counsel.
Okay.
The city's financial advisor and bond counsel.
All right, I'm going to withdraw my motion. And he's going to when he's done sneezing. All right, you want to withdraw your?
Yeah, I'll withdraw my second.
Okay, motion to authorize city manager to work with financial advisors and bond counsel to facilitate the process to procure bonds up to an amount of $8.5 million.
Second.
Mr. Denal, you good with that? All right, any member of or the public? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Next motion would be motion to direct AEW Consulting Engineers to begin design work for bid documents for the Industrial Park Road project mentioned above.
Second.
All right. Any
Who
member?
made the first? Is your motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I just thought I'd finish it up. City Attorney.
Yes, so this motion, I think, could use a little bit of extra information in it. So tonight, what we're doing under ordinance is we are determining to make the improvements and defray the whole or any part of the cost of the improvements by special assessment, legalese from the ordinance. So by resolution, the council is to approve the plans and specifications for the improvement, to determine the estimated cost, to determine what proportion of such cost shall be paid by special assessment. We've gotten to that. And what part is the city's obligation, and then designate the premises and direct the assessor. So I guess the direct the assessor part, we'll capture all the other things throughout the process, but instead of just the engineer, I think we have to make sure the assessor is included to prepare the special assessment roll so that it is prepared for purposes of, hold on, I went too fast.
Yes, you did. Yeah, you did.
The city council shall require the assessor to prepare or cause pre-prepared plans and specifications. I know Mike Vagron works very closely with them to get that done. It has to be filed with the city clerk, together with the recommendation as proportions, who's paying what and which parts, and the number of installments. So as part of this motion, let me go back to the motion, it would be to direct AEW Consulting Engineer Mike Vigneron to work with the city assessor to complete the, what do they call it in the ordinance? It's basically the plans and specifications. And then, the next part of that motion, to begin the design work for bid documents. Does that make sense? So I want to make sure we get the assessor part captured too, because the ordinance requires us to do that tonight.
I'm going to try. All right. Did that get seconded?
Yeah, withdraw my second.
Okay, I withdraw my motion. Motion to direct Anderson, Eckstein, and Westrick to begin plans and specifications for the industrial park roads and to work with the city's assessor. And what else do you want?
To complete that information for public inspection.
To complete that information for public inspection. That is my motion.
Second.
Thank you. All right, any member of council have a question, comment? Anyone in the audience? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, all. All right.
Mr. Mayor or Mr. Attorney, do we have to do something about, you said 15-year, 10-year ordinance change? Do we have to have a separate, or is that?
We'll have that on the next meeting.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Just making sure.
Thank you. That's it on the industrial roads. And I'd like to take a 5-minute break, go to the restroom before we get on to the next exciting part of our meeting. So we'll be back at, let's get back at 8:05, please. I'm told that I need to speak closer into the microphone like I tell everyone else to, so I'll try that. Item number 7D is our utility rate study update. Mr. Kazor from Municipal Finance, Municipal Analytics is here tonight. Good evening.
Good evening, all. And we'll get the slides up there so everybody can see. So we'll go to the next slide. And just a quick review of what we're doing and why I'm back in front of you again. So we presented the initial findings about 6 weeks ago. There were a lot of questions from council and some suggestions and requests to dig a little deeper, to explore some other options. So we've run dozens of alternative scenarios trying to come up with a rate strategy that extends over a period of time that gets us to where we need to go, but minimizes impacts on customers to the greatest degree possible. So we're going to present those tonight. You're going to see a lot of different options, and you're going to have to pick something to move forward. So that's what we're going to try to go through, and we'll talk about what those options are and what they mean in terms of rate impacts. A quick review, financial model for the project. We developed the financial model and calculating revenues for your water and sewer that we need from your rates. We're looking at the total cost of your utilities, so this includes operations, maintenance, capital, debt service, et cetera. That's all in there. And we're trying to keep your cash reserves at a healthy level. That's another something that we're going to be talking about as well. And throughout this, we will see some scenarios where we're actually, all the scenarios are using a decent amount of your existing cash to keep rates low. Going to the next slide, water and sewer rates. Sorry, one more slide. There we go. As we know, enterprise funds are intended to recover the costs from their users. So we're trying to develop a rate structure that generates the revenue from your users based on their usage and their demand capacity on the system. So that's why we have a variable charge and a fixed charge. And we'll talk about what those impacts are as we go forward. The user charges, what you pay per unit or 1,000 gallons or 100 cubic feet, is based on primarily your variable costs. And as I said last time, a lot of your costs are fixed. So 100% of your Great Lakes water bill that you pay to Great Lakes is fixed. 60% of your bill that you pay for water is fixed. So your wastewater is 100%, water is 60%. Your internal costs for your staff and your own operations is nearly 100% fixed as well. So we have a very high fixed system, and right now you have a high reliance on the variable rate. So we're going to try to address that. We'll go to the next slide. Looking back at rates and increases back to 2019, you have not really had any increases to speak of on the ready-to-serve charges. On the commodity charge, you'll see that there has been some slight increases, but been held steady for the last 4 or 5 years, not much change at all. So it's time to start investing in the system, and you need to start generating the revenue to do that. Go to the next slide on the rate strategies. What I did following our last meeting is look at the approximately 800 residential customers that have 1-inch meters and combine them into a residential class with the 5/8-inch meters. So that's the first thing that we did. So this will require, if we're going to move forward with this, there will require some effort to change your billing system to recognize those 1-inch as residential customers and treat them differently than commercial and industrial customers. We also adjusted the transition to the American Water Works Association meter ratios. This is something we talked a lot about last time. We're phasing in over different times for different meter sizes, and that's because right now the meter ratios, what you have now compared to AWWA, are different for the different meter sizes. So we are going to, we've extended it 2 years for the 6 and 8-inch and 6 years for the 1-inch non-residential. So it's just spending more time trying to get to where we need to be to transition to those rates. We also slowed the transition to the higher fixed cost or ready-to-serve charge. So we were trying to get to 60%. Right now, that's been lowered to 50% on the wastewater side and 25% on the water side for over 7 years. So we're slowing that down, reducing the impact year over year. We're also using about $5 million of cash to reduce the impact on rates and lessen the burden there, but still maintain a cash balance that's sufficient. We'd always like more, but we're trying to walk a tightrope here and balance things out. We also looked at alternative capital investments and funding options, and that's what we'll talk about as we go through the next slide. So option one, we're looking at fully funding the CIP as it is currently in place. That averages about $3 million a year, and that would require about $5.3 million of debt in the near term, next few years, to pay for that. So that's one strategy. And I say 5.3 million, that's what we have to get to smooth the rates out the way that we want them smoothed out. Another alternative, option two, is to reduce the CIP in the first 2 years by about $1 million each. Thus, we're slowing down the capital. We can avoid debt by doing that. We can still fund the projects with cash. We just have to defer projects out a little bit longer. And I heard that was something that the council was willing to consider. So that is another option that we're looking at. Now I'm going to walk through on the next slides some of the impacts here. So option one again, $3 million a year or so on average with the bond. And this is just illustrating what it looks like compared to option two, where it's all cash. So you'll see in that top left chart, those orange bars are debt, and everything else that's blue is cash. So the only difference between these two is we have lower numbers in 25 and 26, and we don't bond. That's what we're looking at, difference there. Going to the next slide, cash reserve impacts. I'm looking at the bonding versus the cash only. And you can see the cash position is about the same. It's a little bit weaker on the option one as we get out further. Next slide shows us the fixed versus the variable revenue. Not a lot of difference between these two as we look at what the impacts would be. So I'm not too worried about getting to where we're trying to go over time. It's just either approach would get us there. The next slide shows the customer impacts for option one and two. So this is your typical residential customer with a 5/8 or a 1-inch residential meter using 5 units of water per month. And under both options, we have a very similar rate trajectory. So not a lot of difference between the two. So the rate impact, I would say, is negligible over the next 7 years, either approach that you choose, on the residential customers. The next slide shows the impact on a 2-inch customer using 200 units per month. And for option one with the debt, they're going up 7%, 6%. And again, on option two, it's very similar for this customer. And this is just a hypothetical customer, larger meter, larger use. The next slide shows an impact that's greater because here we have a 1-inch customer, commercial, not residential, using on the top two charts 100 units a month, and on the bottom two charts using 10 units per month. And this illustrates where a low-volume user will have a higher impact. Their bills will be impacted more greatly than a low user. In both cases, I would say the bottom option with the lower user, we're hovering around 10% increase for the first few years, and then it goes lower to 6% in the final year, whereas the higher volume in the top two charts has, again, less of an impact year over year. And this is something we see everywhere as you're shifting rates around. The higher fixed charge impacts the lower volume user more. We'll go to the next option, and we'll talk about implementation strategy. This was another question about how and when do we adopt rates. So we've got 5 options here. The first one is what I presented initially, and that you just saw in those slides there, which is a rate adoption in January 2025, and then we just kick in with annual rate adjustments starting in July of 2025. So there would be 2 increases in that calendar year, 1 increase in this current fiscal year, and then an increase for 25, 26, and then it just updates every July after that. The second option we'll go through is implementing in the first increase in January again of 2025, and then we just keep adjusting in Januaries, mid-year. Third option is adjust in January 2025, 9 months later, so a quarter into the next fiscal year, we adjust again, and then July of 2026, and then July after that. So again, that would be 2 increases in calendar 25, 1 in this current fiscal year, 1 in next fiscal year, but there's a little bit of relief for the next fiscal year because we're not doing it until 3 months into the fiscal year. The fourth option is July of 2025. So we skip the January increase and we just wait until July, and then we just update every fiscal year after that. And then finally, another January increase, and then we hold off until July of 2026 for the next increase. So we don't increase for fiscal year 25-26. We wait until 26-27. And then again, January's after that. And for all these illustrations, I'm using the no new debt scenario so that we don't have to see twice as many charts.
Did you say the no debt?
Yes.
Okay. Cash.
All right, so next slide is option 1 laid out. This is looking at your, again, residential bill that shows we are getting 8%, 6.7% increase, 5, et cetera. Cash balance looks pretty good. If we want to look out to that final year, we're at 155.36 for the bill.
In 2031.
2031. And obviously, things are going to change. This is just forecasting. Option 2, next slide. Again, implementing in January and then each January thereafter. We have similar rate increases, a little bit higher actually, and your cash balance is weaker. So probably not the preferred option, but that is an option that you can look at.
Real quick, can you point out what that bottom chart means? Because that's really where our money...
Right, so the bottom chart here, this dotted red line is the minimum cash that we want to have at the end of each fiscal year, and the black is kind of where we would like to have it. That's kind of the target. And the green bars are what's forecasted as where the cash would actually be. So you can see we're dipping just below the minimum here and hovering near the minimum going out. So that's not one that I'm terribly comfortable with, and we're at 160 for that final bill compared to the 155. Next slide is option 3. And again, this is the January 25 increase, another adjustment in October 25, and then we start in July of 26, annual July increases. Cash position here is stronger. The increases are about the same as they were on the option 1, and we end up at about the same place in that final year in terms of an estimated bill. Option 4 on the next slide. This is implementing in July of 2025 and then every July after that, so we just don't increase for the current fiscal year. You can see there's a bit of a bump up there in 2026 because we're not adjusting 2025. Cash position, again, gets a little bit weaker near 2028, and then the final projected number out in 2031 is the 157, almost 158. And the final scenario, option for implementation strategies, is January of 2025, and then wait until 2026, 27 to implement again. And again, there's a 0% increase between 25 and 26, and then a 9.4, 6, 7, et cetera. And cash is probably the weakest of all of them on this option. So we'll go to the final slide, just to give clarity about what we're needing to do. Council needs to give some direction on the capital investment funding, which rate adjustments you're going to pursue or be interested in terms of adoption, and then actually adopt some rates. Now, this doesn't have to happen tonight, but I know you're running out of time if you want to adopt something for January. And then I've got to do some training and get the final report to you, so you'll have that. So that's where we're at. I just threw a whole lot at you, but you seem pretty good at digesting numbers tonight, so see how this goes.
Okay. Questions from council? Oh, you had your light on.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, okay. So, get closer to the microphone, dear. Okay. I like the debt option, and I think I believe that we could defer $1 million a year for the first 2 years and avoid debt. Did I say debt option? I like the cash option.
Okay, that's thank you. Yes.
I'm good at numbers, bad at words tonight. I prefer the cash option, and if Mr. Vigneron can nod yes, that we can defer a couple $1 million in the first 2 years in order to get these rates to work.
I think he's pointing at Rob.
The point is we need to get these things fixed. We have $22 million over 7 years. That's an ambitious plan by itself. And so I personally like that option is cash. And then as far as the options for scheduling, I'm not a big fan of a January and then a July increase. That's what, an 16% increase in 6 months. I understand these are large numbers. They're a pretty big jump. And I've been the one saying that we need to keep these rates. We need to cover our GLWA costs. We haven't done that. And now we're here where we're kind of making up for lost time. So as far as options go, we have 5. I thought that option 3 seems to be the one that has some distance between the first 3 rate adjustments and keeps our minimum cash, keeps us at or above the minimum cash required. It's not perfect, but
none of them are.
No, and I realize that. And all the rates are pretty much very similar over that period of time. It's just a matter of when do you want to make that rate adjustment.
And how much cash we're using to keep them about similar.
Sure.
That's the other difference.
Yes, we're using cash to keep those rates in that ballpark. And the other question was that I had, and I don't know the answer. I believe GLWA gives us their rates in the spring. Is that
usually in April or May? Yeah, you'll get them.
So doing it in July would give us fresh information on what Great Lakes Water Authority is doing, and we can incorporate that.
We have heard that Great Lakes is rescinding their promise to not exceed 4% increases per year.
I heard that too.
But they are looking at no increase for 2025 on the wastewater side, or 2025-26. However, that is system-wide. We don't know what Fraser's impacts would be. When they say 4% or 0, they mean system-wide. There's still going to be adjustments between communities or with.
And our rate adjustments have been relatively, what was the agreement with Great Lakes Water Authority for the first 10 years?
I'm sorry?
Great Lakes Water Authority had promised when they took over that there'd be.
They would limit their increases to 4% a year.
Okay.
And that's now they're now saying
that's over.
They can't hold that anymore.
Okay. Let's see, what else?
So just for clarity, in the model, all of these numbers are based on 6.5% increase per year from Great Lakes Water.
Okay.
If we get to April of next year and we're looking at adjusting rates again for July or October or the following year, we will know what your actual impacts are because you'll get your rate letter. And then we can revise the numbers and say, okay, now this is what the real rates are.
Yeah, and it's going to be close. It's not going to,
I mean, there will be some changes, yes, but
but we will do that each year.
yes.
And would you consider this a 7-year plan or a 5-year rate? I guess.
I prefer to not go past 3 years, but
I agree.
I'm showing this for illustration purposes.
Anything after 3 years
Is hyperbole and yeah.
It's a guess.
It's a guesstimate.
Educated one, but it's I know, great, when does the county tell us what our rates are going to be for sewer?
Mid.
I'm not sure.
Are they in the spring? I mean, are they before July?
I don't know when they, Rob, do you know? Okay.
I don't either. I got it in an email somewhere.
I'm sure they'll have them in time for your next fiscal year.
Okay, and that's the main thing, is that, I think that's why I like the timing of rate adjustments in July after we get through the first
Right.
2 years.
Yes.
And then just after that, as part of our budget process that we always did before. So, Councilmember Odell.
So with this model, how much, I guess I didn't see, or maybe I missed, how much is actually going into, are we budgeting at this rate increase, how much are we putting back into investment into the infrastructure? What's that?
It's between the two options, 24.5 and 22, if we're gonna forego $1 million each year.
So if we can go back to slide number 8. Has the chart on there. So if we're looking at the bottom chart, just over $2 million for 25 and 26, and then about 2.7 and 27, 3.5 and 28, et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Baranski.
Yeah, you might have said this, but I just want to make sure. These new proposals, all of the residents, regardless of their pipe size, will have the same.
Correct. It would be a residential class of customers.
Perfect. And then option 4, option 4 on your chart in paying July 2025 and then
Yes.
every July thereafter. So it's like a 10%, 10.1% in 2026. Why is it 0 in 2025?
Because we'd keep your current rates for the rest of this fiscal year.
Okay, so right, so that was, and then in July, okay, you answered it. Okay, so to me, option 4 just seemed to be, like, that caught my attention right away. Option 2 is a very close second, but I'd rather wait and start this in July of 2025. Those are my thoughts.
Okay, anyone else? Mayor Pro Tem.
Just on that, I would rather rip off the Band-Aid, I think, and just start January 2025.
Your mic's not on, sorry.
I'm sorry, so I would just rather rip off the Band-Aid and start January 2025.
City Manager.
I did speak with our finance director about the timing for making this change in January. It's going to be very challenging from a staffing perspective, especially given the fact that we're looking to move some of these residentials and change everything.
Right, there would-
I don't know how long that setup is going to take, and I know she's really concerned about how that process is going to go. Certainly, if you approve the January one, we will do overtime and put in whatever it takes to get it done, but I just wanted you to be aware of that.
Okay.
And to clarify what that means, you have to identify which of your accounts are residential 1-inch customers, and then create a new class within the billing software and a code and assign dollars to the code and whatnot. And usually you want at least a few weeks to go through that and then audit it and make sure it's working, so.
And our January bill would go out in February, sometime in February. And so we'd have to have the rates done at that, they'd have to all be updated at that point in time. Doesn't
Before
have
the
to be
bills
done
go,
in
yes.
January 1st, it would have to be done February,
Whenever the next bills go out.
whenever the next bills go out. The And then, oh, I know. Do you offer services to help us do that and maybe a second set of eyes to make sure that we've set up the rates correctly?
I personally do not, but I can refer you to somebody who is intimately familiar with BSNA, who can help you with that, and he enjoys it.
Is it you?
I was wondering if you were,
It was not
that
the
would be a
mayor, no.
conflict for me to do that.
Yes,
but
it would be.
I enjoy BS.
There's another finance person in the state that he's very good at it, and I call on him a lot.
Councilmember Shornack.
So I have a compromise, more or less. So because of the whole trying to get it going efficiently without a ton of overtime, especially going into the holidays, yada, 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 I'm fine with number 4. However, the caveat to that is the increase that we're going to do in January, I would prefer in option 2 to be started this year. I don't want to go from here to here. I wanted to kind of segue up for our residents. I think, especially if we're going to start doing the bills in July, summer bills are typically higher than winter bills typically anyway. So for staffing purposes and getting the model going correctly and getting everything audited and everything moving forward, I would say start them in July, do them every subsequential July, and do the increase, but start the increase in 25, not hold off to 26. Is that feasible?
Started in July of 25.
25 of July.
Right, and that is the, which option is that?
That's not on any of the options. Option 2 says to start it in January, but
Option 4, start in July of 25, and then.
with a 0, that's what your option 4
No, the 0
says.
would be because you're not increasing rates this year.
Yeah, but well, obviously this year's almost over. In 2025, I would like to start that because I don't want this to be such an enormous jump for people. I want it to be a little more even keel on the up because if they have some time to adjust to it, even 6 months to adjust to it, then you're only going to be raising it instead of to 10.1. You're going to, you'll have 8. You see where I'm going with this?
I think so, but might I suggest another alternative, and that is March.
Okay, I'm fine
March of
with March.
2025, and then hold off until July of 2026. Then you're
Okay.
doing
I just don't
one rate
wanna
increase
go-
in 2025 that impacts the last quarter of this fiscal year. It applies to all of next fiscal year, and then you adjust again. So it's going to kind of be a blend between
Right.
2 and 4.
What was that? What was
So start it in March
March?
instead
And
of
then what-
January.
And then the next one would be when?
In July
July
of 2026.
So like a year and
Right, you'd have 15 months at the new rate, and then new rate.
And then
then the next rate.
first jump
I would
would-
prefer that.
The
I
first-
think that would be a wiser decision for our
At
residents.
what rate? 8%?
The 8% that he was going to do in January, it's just held up to March.
So it's option 6.
Well, yeah, well, exactly. We need a blend of 2 and 4 is what I'm
Okay.
saying. And I think number 1, that gives our staff time to get it
Right.
implemented and without as much stress as it would normally be if we said turn this around in, 60
Yeah,
days.
especially the holidays.
Especially around the holidays. So I think March would be a much easier deadline to hit. What do you think, Elaine? You think, okay. So, I honestly, that's what I'm thinking. So it's a blend of 2 and 4.
And so in March, we would do 8%, is that?
Right, and I can run a scenario. The numbers are going to look fairly similar. The cash will go down a little bit more, but not
Okay.
anything.
So it rips the Band-Aid off sooner, but not too soon, so that we make sure it's done right, because that's most important. We want it to be done right.
Right.
And then there's a jump, and then there's a longer.
That's
time
exactly,
before there's
yes.
another- Okay.
To get used to it.
So, I'm taking notes, March 25, and then wait till
July of 26.
26.
Correct.
So there would be so March of 25 would cover all of,
All of fiscal year 25, 26.
okay, just want to make sure because
Yep.
we're talking about two.
So we're in, for the last 3 months of this current fiscal year and all of next fiscal year would be the same rate.
Yep.
And then we'd adjust again starting in July of 26 and every year after.
Okay, if we did that option, then you could run a model and
Yes,
get them
I can-
rates that they could incorporate into the public hearing notice?
Yes. And that would align closer to your budget discussions anyhow and give you a better sense. And, yeah, I can do that, yes.
Okay. And I know that there's been talk about how much database work. It's a matter of just digging in and doing it, and it's not a 3-month process, but
It's just, there's detail that has to.
there's a detailed process that has to go into
Yeah.
adjusting those figures.
Right, I just, going into the holidays, like I said, I don't think that's fair to
No,
Julie and her staff.
I understand. I just didn't want anybody to think this is going to be a full-on, full-time person for 3
No.
months. No. I could do that in, 12 to 4 a.m. and 8 nights. But, I'm teasing. But I can live with that. What do you, it's getting loud in here again.
Okay, so I'm going to make the motion, if I could, please, to combine option 2 and 4. I also want to go with the cash option for the 22 million. I don't want to bond out for any more cash. So I want to go with the cash option of 22 million, put off some stuff, because I'm most likely realistically with engineering and just labor, it's going to get postponed anyway. So, and moving forward with a blend of option 2 and 4, so that the increase of 8% starts in March of 2025, and then subsequently after that on July of every year. I'll second that.
That's fine, you can just share.
Okay, Mr. Gitschlag, do you have that? Can you boil that down to a motion that you could repeat for us? You understand it?
Yes, I have it, the blend of, not that the motion needs to say blend of 2 and 4, but the cash option of 22 million, 8% increase in March of 25, and subsequent July increases.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
No problem.
All right, motion by Councilmember Shornack, seconded by Councilmember Stein. All right, any comment from the public? You're back.
Turning the mic on.
Go ahead.
No, I
Okay.
didn't want to cough.
All right, I just want to make sure council is ready. Everybody good with that? Okay, thank you. Mr. Farina, you are the first
Contestant, Price is Right.
citizen to speak up and let us know.
When I was in business, we would get a target that we had to lay off 50 people, equivalents. If we waited longer, it became 55 people. If you did it when at the beginning of the year, it was 50. I like March as a date. It gets you past the holiday, but it gets people used to paying the rate before the summer. And there's some breathing room in there. So I would offer to you, go March to March to March. It gives you income sooner than July, a little bit, but it gets people into, that payment method before, they get hit with a big bill, and they know about it. So that's my only thought on that.
I'll just react to that, and that is, I'm working with another client right now who has a calendar fiscal year, so January 1, and they adopt rates effective April 1st. Similar because the transition is during a low volume period. So that is a strategy that is used in other places as well.
My only concern would be that we might not have Great Lakes Water Authority.
And that is a big
rates, and
concern, yes.
That's really why I like the July, after the March. We already know we need to go up. But after that, July gives us time to integrate any rate changes from the county.
Yep.
And integrate any rate changes from Great Lakes Water Authority. So that's...
And the forecast right now, assuming cost increases are close to what we expect and capital costs stay about where they are, which is not guaranteed, the annual increase per year is going to go down because we're going to get to a point where we've kind of evened this out and we're now steady. And those increases will probably hover around 4% a year once we get to that point. You've got a capital plan that's fairly even that you can keep applying. And if we can just keep that cash balance good, we'll use a little bit of that if we need to absorb some high rate increase from Great Lakes Water one year. But I think you're at a point where 5 years from now, you're going to have some stability that you don't have now, as long as you keep adopting incremental increases.
Thank you. I know we already went up to the public, but I'd like to reiterate that. We are making not a one-year decision, we're making a plan for at least 5 years, and it requires intestinal fortitude each year to make that adjustment. If we do that, we can finance the capital improvement plan that we have. If we don't do that, we will backslide, and the only reason we have a lot of cash in the bank right now is we didn't do the projects we intended to do. And so we had great plans, just like I want to remodel my kitchen, I might have saved money, but if I don't do it, I still have the money, I don't have and I think that's important to recognize that this is something that we cannot bind future councils to that, but we are stating this is what we'd like to do, this is how we think we can move forward to fix the capital needs, as well as do that in a logical manner. Am I stating that?
Yes, I agree that that's the option, the strategy that we're going for here is to
Okay.
put a plan in place and a mechanism in place to update every year with reasonable numbers and not let this the rate increases stop just because it's convenient. Costs don't stop increasing no matter what.
Yep. All right, so we have a motion on the floor, and yes, you may. You are a resident.
Okay, Laura Lessig, 15201 Fairview. I guess just the question, you don't have to answer, but I thought before you set up a option, you would have a public hearing for the public to weigh in on their bills. That's it. Thank you.
That is what the public hearing will be for, so. You can put those rates together. We have the basics of the finance. And so let's take a vote on the options. So I would say all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. You now have that intention of the council. Now, the next thing would be the setting of the public hearing. And Mr. Denault, I'm going to need help with that. And how we should word that, because I don't really have any specific language on that.
Sure. So first question is it the intention to call it a true public hearing where we do notice and mailers or information in water bills, or is it a true public hearing, or is it just an agenda item where the public can be heard on it? And there is no legal requirement for a public hearing. We went over this last year, myself and Cindy Greenia. So it really just comes down to council's preference. And if you want it to be a true public hearing, then the motion would be to set a public hearing date of X for consideration of water rate adjustments. And if you don't want it to be a true public hearing, then it would just be to add it to the next agenda, to have it as an item to be heard on and the public can speak on it. Beyond that, there's really nothing more to it because there's no legal requirement or legal formatting for it.
Yes, and Councilmember Shornack.
I would just like to suggest that it be, again, a hybrid of that. So, because we can put things on the water bill, letting people know we will be discussing it at the meeting, but then not.
It might be too late for that.
Oh, no,
To go on
really?
For December?
I
What
put
about
it
if
on
we
my bill
have the
for-
meeting in we have an agenda item in January and put it on the December?
You're crunching.
But now we're backing them up again.
Well, no, the bills don't go out till the, did they go bill? Oh, no, they're supposed to get paid on the 25th. I have mine on auto pay, so I never know when you take the money. Oh, yeah, I guess that won't work.
I do. I brought this up a couple years ago that we do not require a public hearing for this. It has been customary to do so, but not required.
And many communities still do it customarily, but it's not required.
And but we definitely are, we have, our citizen engagement here on agenda items is similar to a public hearing.
You have a public hearing for every agenda item, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And this works.
It works.
Works for me.
Works for me.
And so I'm good with foregoing the formal public hearing as long as we can get these rates publicized and put them on on our newfangled upgraded website and let the public know they will have an opportunity to speak on that at that night. If that's okay with you.
And the roly-poly.
Well, anywhere we can let them know that we are doing this, and here's why. And perhaps put some hybrid of your presentation on why we're doing it, so. So how would that motion work? Just a motion to add an agenda item for the December 12th, 2024 meeting regarding water rates.
Yes, and if you want, because we're not doing it as a public hearing with specific notice of the proposed increases, would you like on the agenda to have an explanation of what is on the table being proposed?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So why don't we just, rather than try to wordsmith that right now, why don't we defer to city management to wordsmith that, but with the understanding that the directive is make sure it explains to the public the proposal being considered that night.
Let me take another step. Motion to add an agenda item on December 12th, 2024 to consider water rate adjustments, water and sewer rate adjustments, and direct the city manager to prepare a summary of said adjustments for inclusion in the packet. Councilmember Stein.
So I have a question. I know we usually get the agenda out a week before. I would like to have our residents know way before that time. Is that a problem to get that out there before that?
Advertise that.
Advertise that we're talking about water rates. I don't want to wait a week before and then people have all these plans for holidays and then no one's here. So I want to make sure we have enough time.
So what we could do is we could put the notice out.
A notice,
that we'll
okay.
be, having this item on the agenda. And it won't necessarily be all of the detail that's in the packet until the packet gets out.
And can we try to get that like at least 2 weeks before?
I can do the best I can.
I know. I'm just, because the holidays and everybody going, I mean, people, this is an important thing to some people, so.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I mean, it sounds like we're going to a lot of effort to have a public hearing and not call it a public hearing. So why don't we just make it a public hearing? That we're having a public hearing on the 12th for the special assessment district anyway, right?
You got to put notice, you got to pay for it, you got to advertise it.
Dish.
We'll be able to have it in December then, at the big one.
Is that true?
Well, I think we can get it, but there's more expense and cost to it.
Effort, time and effort and expense versus put it on social media.
As August said, we have a public hearing for everything.
We also, though, get accused of not being transparent. And so if it's something, especially with something that's as hot of a topic as water bills in Fraser, I say we just pay the extra money, do the public hearing, do it right, get the notices out, and just do it right. Rather than relying on people driving by and looking at the roly-poly.
Who would we notice? The whole city. Or in the water.
Roly-poly's on the channel, not the sign out front.
Well, whatever.
Well, the logistics of noticing is what we're discussing.
City clerk.
We're just trying to figure out the logistics of noticing. Who are we noticing? The entire city? The mailing?
Well, no, just publishing it in the paper and
That's completely doable.
and then adding it to the calendar.
Yeah, it'd be like $500 depending on how many words we can do it in. Yeah,
Okay.
280.
So we can do that.
I like that idea, yes.
All right, I withdraw my motion. I don't know if anybody seconded it. Motion to set a public hearing on December 12th, 2024 to consider water and sewer rate increases.
Adjustments.
Adjustments.
Still second.
I know, adjustments. Anything else I need to add?
With the stipulation that the materials prepared by city management for the meeting will include all the details of the proposal that's been
All right, I will
forth this evening.
add that too. Do you second
I
that as
still
well?
second.
Okay.
Yes.
Members of the public would like to speak on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, we're having a public hearing. Thank you. I think we're good for tonight, and I got to say, I love what you've done with how you've laid this out and your options, and I appreciate the flexibility.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let me find my other agenda, please. Where'd it go? Here it is. All right, here we go. New business. Item 7E, DPS staffing levels. Councilmember Baranski.
Yes, we had a meeting of the subcommittee, and we met with the director, the city manager, and the two captains, and we talked about a lot of stuff in that meeting. It was a couple hours long. We talked about wishes, desires, finances, the change in the societal needs and wants, people wanting to be public safety officers versus firemen versus police officers, and the challenges that go into it for our city, and just the realities of what is going on. And one of the things that became apparent to the subcommittee out of that meeting, and this is the start of a process, that this was not going to be a one and done. We're going to have lots of conversations and bring it back for further deliberation to the council. But the immediate need that we saw right away was that because we have a different interest base from people who want to be officers in public safety, that they are requiring additional training. They have to go through the fire academy almost unanimously, some the police academy. So it's taking longer to hire and train, therefore become a value-added member out on the streets, that we, in our succession planning previous, had waited until we knew they were definitively going to retire. But with the last hire, it was at least 9 months that I want us, we as a committee, and I'm going to make a motion that we allow the hiring of 2 officers with the expectation that there will be at least 2 retirements within the next year. It will require potentially budget adjustments, but it will ensure a quicker transition when they do retire. So we're not adding to the bottom number permanently, but we are adding to it now to get them relief sooner than later. That was my motion.
Let's hear from Director Kretschmar, and then we'll.
Well, we had pre-talked about this, that
That wasn't a motion yet, so. Director Kretschmar.
I missed what you said.
That wasn't a motion.
That was my motion.
It was.
I made a motion.
I didn't hear you say.
Yeah, no, that was, we had talked about this ahead of time.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my motion.
Right.
And did you second
And I
it?
second it.
They said it was easy.
So what is the essence of the motion?
To allow her to hire 2 public safety officers now, although no one has put in their official retirement yet.
So it's to hire 2 public safety officers now. Okay. All right, Director, do you have, what can you add for that? Microphone.
Got the door.
Microphone. No, it's me. I gotta lean closer to it.
Oh, there it goes. Councilmember Bransky summed it up pretty well. We met and discussed this for a length of time. We have an additional meeting set up to talk about longer-term plans. But the reality is, because of the time it takes us to hire and fully train someone, it is a year or more before that person is eligible to be on their own and acting in full capacity in complete police and fire capacity. So knowing that we have 2 people ready to retire today if they so chose, and another person who would be eligible to retire in 30 days, that leaves us with 3 people that could walk out the door at a moment's notice, and just really puts us in a hardship. Additionally, we have another officer that is recently, within the last couple of weeks, had to come off the road due to some other medical issues, and that further just strains our force and our numbers per platoon. So it was recognizing this, the subcommittee was great, and everybody participated in this, and recognizing all these shortfalls, these short-term shortfalls for sure. It was the consensus that we should be able to hire, or at least start the hiring process for 2 officers today in hopes that they get a little closer to being full-fledged officers and fully trained and on their own by the time 1 or 2 or 3 of these retirees leave. The reality is they will still not, these officers are going to leave before these newer people are going to be fully trained, even if we start now. But starting now is better than starting later, so it is a step in the right direction. So I appreciate the subcommittee's time and the fact that we're going to continue to meet. But that is really the long and short of it, is that we are short right now, and we're going to be shorter in 2 months, and then shorter still in 10. So if we can get it moving now, get people hired and start the training process, that will help. It will help get us there in the short term.
Okay. And the intention will be to continue this program so that we smooth out these, so we don't have
That's
gaps in
the
our
intention.
staffing.
Yeah, is so that we don't actually go into a deficit, that we're able to try to figure out timelines and have people on the bubble or close to the bubble or near that before other people leave, so that we don't fall into a hole. That's the idea, and hence the further discussion at future meetings.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Sutherland.
Are there any collective bargaining agreements in place that would still leave us behind if promotions occurred based on the retirements? So meaning someone retires that's at a higher level than a PSO.
So what
So to
happens-
get promoted to
Correct.
cover those retirements,
It's a
now are we
trickle-down effect.
still going to be behind X amount of officers because of the promotions?
Yeah, so, for example, let's say a captain retires, and he will be eligible to do so. There's a vacancy there that needs to be filled, so a sergeant, we run a testing process, which we were already in discussion about that, and we will promote a sergeant to that captain's position, which leaves a vacancy in the sergeant's position, so a PSO gets promoted to sergeant, which leaves a hole on the road.
So then is it 2? Is 2 the number, or is it more?
Well, 2 is what we're asking for today, and we have, the next meeting will be December 13th, where we are going to continue these discussions for the succession planning, the promotion, the hiring, the training, because even once we promote these people, they still need to be trained as well. So there's a whole process that goes into this. It's easy for us to see it, but the timeline isn't always exact.
And I think that's kind of my point too, and it's almost in the same family as what Mr. Farino was talking about earlier, right? Where if we see it coming and we're going to be having these conversations again a month from now, where it's 2 today and it's going to be 2 more in a month, why isn't it just 4 now?
Budget for starters.
Well, right.
That's the number one, and it's an estimate. And there's short-term problems and long-term problems.
But then we're also going to be creating additional expense by going back out and starting this process over again.
No promotion is required by the contract, so to answer your first question, but is needed based on best practices. And that's the next step that we're going to talk about.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you want to add 4, you got to find money.
I would accept 4 today, that would be.
Well, my point of bringing that up too is just if something is going to happen and we're going to go ahead and do another 2 in a month.
Well, which is the point of the subcommittee, right? We get
Right.
together and we discuss our options and availabilities and budgetary concerns and see if we can come to what we think is the best way to proceed.
So, or if you're talking about 3 today, then why isn't it 3? I'm maybe not jumping straight to 4, but
2 is the number that the subcommittee
Okay.
agreed upon.
So, trust in the subcommittee.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'd like to say thank you to the subcommittee. You guys came to a consensus pretty quickly here, and I'll take the 2 today and know that in the future you may come back and have other requests based upon staffing and retirements and other things, so.
Absolutely.
I have no problem with that, so. Any other comments by council?
She did.
No, she answered the question I was
No,
gonna
you
say.
seconded my motion.
You
Oh,
second.
second motion, I thought you meant the question. I'm sorry.
All right, let's take it out to this. Anyone in public like to speak on this matter? All right, we have a motion to hire 2 PSOs as part of the succession planning. I won't read back the whole motion, but I think that's the essence of it. Motion by Councilmember Baranski, seconded by Councilmember Stein. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Mayor, the other thing that I had indicated in the subcommittee that I would present for you guys, you kind of touched on it, is we as a council have to start thinking for the next budget period, what do we want the department to look like, and how do we pay for it? Because the department wants to add officers, of course, the residents want to add officers, but have made it clear they don't want additional taxes. And so something else would have to give. We incurred expense today with the roads, which is great. We have other expenses. So start thinking realistically how we pay for what we want. And that was the commitment that we as the subcommittee said that we would look to you guys for, so that we're not waiting until next May. We're starting to talk and being mindful of everything we add, we still only have a finite sum of money unless P33 is going up, which is not how I operate. I don't operate on borrowed money. But council can do what they want. So you were on point of what I wanted to ask, what we wanted to ask, and
Nice if we didn't cut it.
well,
Okay.
Anyway.
All right.
that's borrowing money that
Okay.
not living in your means.
All right, we need to move on to the next item. I would like to propose moving the car wash moratorium conversation up so that we have some members of the audience, including an attorney here. And if there are no objections to that, can we do that?
Motion.
You are the chair of the meeting, Mr. Mayor. If
All
no
right,
one's
I would like
objecting.
to have that car wash moratorium conversation now. So we're moving item 7G to 7F. No, you're not, it's.
Nope.
Yeah, car wash.
Oh, car wash.
She's car
yes.
wash.
Lauren, have a seat. All right, who would like to start? How about you, Mr. Denault?
Sure, I don't think Ms. Sayer would object to that. So this agenda item was brought to the city council. It's been in the works for a number of months. Planning department put together a memorandum that has been distributed to all of you explaining some of the rationales for just putting this in front of you tonight to give it some thought. It's something that's pretty commonplace when new development is happening in the city that hasn't been adjusted for in a while. And because Lauren's office is working diligently on an 18-month or 2-year zoning ordinance overhaul and completely rethinking, re-envisioning, reimagining, and trying to update and modernize those provisions, when it became apparent that we have a closed car wash and a new one interested, and we're looking around the country and seeing that there are a lot of states and cities, mostly communities, I guess not states, putting moratoriums on this to study it, right? And just to understand, why are they proliferating? What does that do to our infrastructure, our environment? What does that do to our community in terms of need and long-term sustainability? What does that do to our visioning and master planning? So I think, Lauren can explain the planning side better than I, but if you read that memorandum, she's laid out, and her office has laid out a number of rationales for why it's important to study things like this. No different than we did for the shipping container moratorium not too long ago, and certainly I've worked on other moratoriums, even for local communities in the area, for car washes, gas stations, and things of that nature, so the city can study what to do with them. That being said, it's simply been put before you so that you can consider it. It doesn't mean that anybody's advocating for it. It's more of a eyes wide open kind of thing to just give you the opportunity and the option should you feel it's necessary for the city of Fraser at this time. And I'll turn it over to Lauren if she wants to enhance on any of that.
Thank you. Lauren Sayre from McKenna. Yeah, so I agree with everything Mr. Denault said. Car washes look very different from the 90s when this ordinance was last updated. A lot of them have these large vacuums externally that might even be larger than the building itself. So studying, the visual impacts, the potential noise impacts, as well as environmental and ingress and egress with these kind of new modernized developments is really one of the impetuses for this moratorium coming before you tonight. And as Mr. Denault indicated, communities such as Roseville and Sterling Heights, which border Fraser, all have moratoriums on car washes as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Councilmember Shornack.
So my question is this, because we have one that is looking to go in at Meyer, and they have already gone through the planning and ZBA, and I believe that they were like pre-approved or whatever, I hesitate to I'm okay with it, but not at this point, because we already have somebody who's invested all this money, and even though the keyboard warriors, because of my vote on sheets, seems to think that I'm against business, which I'm not, I would think it would behoove us to wait on this only because that this is already in play, or unless that wouldn't be part of this motion. Because I don't think that would be right that this individual or this company has already spent all this money to go through this process to put that there. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, well, just kidding, you can't be there because we put a moratorium on there.
Yeah, and I understand that concern. I think if that's the logic, then no moratoriums ever get in place. There's always, potential for future development. This isn't targeting that specific location. It just, of course, brought up that, these uses are vastly different than they were, and studying that and ensuring that future development is in line with the vision of Fraser that the master plan envisions is the goal.
Right, no, I totally get that, and believe me, I'd be fine with not having 6 million car washes too, trust me. I'm just saying I don't think it's right to push this forward unless we exclude the particular business that's already in play. If we say, okay, after this one, moratorium, okay, but I don't think that's right that this individual and this company has put out all this money to do this already, and then we're going to be like, yeah, just kidding, because I don't think they've had any warning of that, because I don't think that this was even a possible outcome or a possible thing we were going to be doing. So, unless we can word it somehow to exclude that current business that is looking to come into Fraser, moving forward, it'd be a moratorium for any other people who have not thus applied and gone through the motions, I would be fine with it at that point. But if it's going to preclude the people who've already put out that money, I don't think that's right, because they didn't have any warning that this was coming down the pipeline when they put out all the money to do all that.
Mr. Denault, can we do an exception for applicants currently working with the city?
We absolutely can, and I can help you wordsmith that if that is the will of council. And I'm not advocating either for or against, but I just want to respond briefly to that, Lauren kind of said it, and I'll reiterate, we don't necessarily get advance warning when a thing wants to set up shop, right?
Right.
So that's why moratoriums are put before councils and boards, because, oh, wait, this is coming, and we haven't prepared for it, right? So that's kind of why it's here. It's not that, like she said, it's not targeting the business, but once the inquiry came through, wait a minute, we're doing the zoning ordinance amendment. Should we be rethinking that before we push it too far? And then, of course, it takes time to put this together, and they're farther into the process now than we would like. So if council is inclined to do that, and there's no guarantee that this business is even going to finish the planning process, right? There's no guarantee planning commission or whatever else they still need done is going to be given to them. But if that's the inclination, I would absolutely help you wordsmith a motion to add a few words to exempt anybody currently in the planning process.
That absolutely would be my motion. I don't think that would be right to.
Councilmember Odell.
Yeah, and I believe the car wash right by the Dairy Maid on Utica is going under updates as well. So, a moratorium would stop that, right? Or if it's an existing car wash, would be all right. If they're just updated, the one south on Utica, south west.
As it's drafted currently, it would stop any reopening of defunct car washes currently.
So if it's shut down right now and they haven't put their investment in, they would be stuck, more or less, correct?
As it's currently written, is my understanding.
Yeah, I have a problem with that big time. Yeah, especially if they're rehabilitating the property for the use that it's already been used for.
Are they though? Do you know that for sure?
Says coming soon. Updates. I drive by it a lot, so I would want that as well. With any existing already approved car washes or some that want to update their facilities. I don't see how we can. I could see for new car washes, but not for existing car washes that are already there.
Councilmember Baranski.
So I don't know anything about the Meyer car wash, so I don't know where it's at. I hadn't heard about it till you just said that. I don't know that that's relevant or not, because to me, the bigger issue is our experts see that there's a hole in our rules that could result in some very disproportionate situations, and they have requested a moratorium to ensure that it is going forward a business that's consistent with the city. So you can exempt out, but I also can appreciate, I don't know where they're at. Like, did they submit plans? Did they go to the, I don't know anything about it. So I'm kind of torn on it, because
They have.
rules and taking a pause to make sure the rules make sense is always good idea before you have this over here and then this over here, and then someone's like, wait a second, I see a recipe for disaster.
Mayor Pro Tem Sutherland.
So, I mean, the moratorium, I didn't see anything in here about a duration of time.
Is that a year?
Yeah, it
Is
has
it?
12 months.
It has a date on it. It has a date at
12
the end.
months.
12 months. Okay. I mean, does it have to be 12 months?
It does not. It's just, that's typically customary to give enough time for the study process, because holidays, next thing you know, 6 months, 9, we could do 6, 9. But the question is, we would be coming back to you to ask you for more time because we haven't been able to get to it yet, right?
Maybe.
Maybe. I'm just saying, that's the question. We don't know. And you're right to point that out. It's not a ban, it's a pause.
Yeah.
It's a status quo button that just says, hold on, let's slow the ship, and that's all it is. It's not a ban. But to your point, it could be less.
All right, I'm going to take a stab at this and motion to approve the moratorium resolution with an exception for applicants currently working with the city. Is that sufficient?
I actually wrote out what I.
Well, you said you were going to help us. You didn't
Yes.
say you wrote it, so go ahead and write
is
it,
my
and I'll
help.
say what he said.
With the exception of any applications that have been accepted by the city and are pending on November 14th, 2024, and if it's the will of council, and any sites already built for car wash use. If that's the will of council. I don't know if it's the will of the motion maker.
I like that motion. That would mean that the self-serve place on Utica that's kind of ratty, if they wanted to upgrade it, they could actually do that. All right, that's my motion.
Second.
Okay, motion by Lessig, seconded by Councilmember Shornack. Any other comments on council? Any member of the public would like to speak on this matter?
Good evening. My name is Ben Aloya. I'm a local attorney from Mount Clemens. I represent Versus Development Group, and they are working with Mr. Car Wash for the car wash near the Meyer. As been explained tonight, we did get our application in August. There have been several hearings to amend the site plan for Meyer to accommodate this development, because it is an assemblage development where we bought the property in the front, knocked down a house, we're buying a piece from Meyer. So they adjusted their parking requirement, because as you know, Meyer is overparked, and they're able to do it, but the ordinance is the ordinance. And so the Planning Commission, the ZBA, gave variances to accommodate that, and they did see our project. What is coming up is we did submit our site plans. We did receive staff comment. We are very thankful for staff working with us. It's been a great relationship. We felt that the comments were positive. There was a couple amendments that we needed to make, which were very simple to do. We were supposed to be on the agenda for November 4th for site plan approval and special land use, because the vacuums are special land use. So all the considerations that you're talking about with vacuums and things like that, the Planning Commission is going to consider that as part of the special land use permit. So we're pretty much there. We're on the December agenda. And so we intend, once we get approved, we're going to build. And so my only request is, and I appreciate the exemption, because we have a lot of money invested, a lot of time. Obviously, there's no guarantee of approval, but we feel like we've worked exceptionally well with the city. We've gotten positive comments from the Planning Commission and the ZBA through this process, that to make sure that we can still get a permit, because the way that this was written in here is that we could get approval but not a permit. And so if that's the case, it's financially detrimental. So I hope that's part of that we could, if we do get approval for this new car wash, we can get our permit as we go through the process and build. So that's really important to us. you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And I do have owners' representatives here if there's any questions.
I would say that if you built it, you should be able to operate it. So, Mr. Denault, how would we incorporate that concern into the motion? Or do we need to?
I don't see it. I appreciate Mr. Aloya's perspective, but the wording of it is that effective upon adoption, there's a moratorium on the development of new or reopening of previously existing car wash uses, but then we say in the new language, during the period of this moratorium, there's be no consideration or action taken by the city, anybody at the city, on any request for approval to develop or reopen a car wash facility other than to explain this moratorium, with the exception that we just added for pending applications and properties already built for car wash use. That, I think, implies or is inherent in there that if action is taken on those things, there's nothing in the moratorium banning operation, banning opening, banning C of Os or permits or inspections. So I think we're good. This was meant to stop the process before it begins. So
Well, thank you for, I think it's important to clarify that, and I'll stand by the motion that you said that I agreed with, that I made.
Thank you.
Yes.
If you have any questions, thank you very much. Thank you.
Appreciate
John.
it. Thank you. Any other member of the audience like to speak on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay.
No,
Oh, okay.
or yes to opposition. I don't know how to answer that, so,
Are you in favor of the moratorium?
no,
Okay,
Recorded.
okay. So the vote is 6.
no,
You said you're not in favor of the moratorium?
correct, I'm a no vote.
Okay.
Oh, period. Gotcha. Doesn't even
6
matter
to
what
1,
we have yet.
yes.
Okay,
Can we just do a roll call vote?
gotcha.
Councilmember Baranski. Mayor Lesich.
Yes.
Councilmember Odell.
Yes.
Councilmember Perry.
No,
Councilmember Shornack.
Yes.
Councilmember Stein.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sutherland.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 6-1. Thank you very much. All right, I'll find my agenda again. Now, sign ordinance. This would be 7G, sign ordinance amendment. Thank you, Lauren. Welcome back.
Thank you. Well, so first and foremost, I'd like to thank Planning Commission for all their hard work over the past 18 months, and also Mr. Denault's office as well for all the hard work. The result is an updated, modern sign ordinance that takes into consideration, I guess, recent-ish legal precedents that the current one did not currently address, and also is more user-friendly. I know it's long, but it is organized in a way that we feel it'll be easier to navigate the sign ordinance. The definitions have been updated, new graphics have been added to make it especially clear what the definitions are referring to. Additionally, it addresses items that were previously unregulated, such as temporary signage. So you have the sign ordinance in front of you. Just real quick, it starts with the intent and purpose, then the definitions, then permits, temporary signs, prohibited signs, general requirements, regulations for allowable signs, and we put this into a table as it's easier to quickly, see which district you're in and then what signs you're allowed, how big they are, where they have to be placed, nonconformity and modification, and then finally enforcement. Do you have anything to add to that, Mr. Denault?
No, I don't think I do. We had a great process, took a long time. We spent a lot of time being very detail-oriented. I mean, we went over every period, every comma. We made sure that we did the best we could to make something not ambiguous, clear. Doesn't change too much in the sense that we're not pulling back too many things from people with existing signs. It's more of a future-proofing for the constitutional requirements that it be content neutral, not based on content. And then a lot of, as she said, planner cleanup in terms of organization and ease of use. I was hoping to make a joke, I guess, for lack of a better word, that we think about engineering brains and lawyer brains and how we all think, but I got to learn a lot about planning brains during this process. It was a fascinating exercise. They should make a movie like what is it, Up? Or no, not Up. What's the movie with Inside Out, right? They could do planner brains and engineer brains and lawyer brains. It was great. It was a great process, but we spent a lot of time getting it right, so hopefully it is right.
Hopefully better than engineer brains.
Don't
Wait,
pick
he's
on
still here.
engineers.
Sorry, Mike.
Okay, I'll start with a couple of questions. I actually read the whole thing, and it was just a great way to fall asleep. Not really. Question I had was these stake signs that we see popping up on corners that say, sell your house for cash, and they look like they're handwritten. I mean, those are not allowed in right-of-ways, correct? At all?
No signs are allowed in right-of-ways.
Okay, but then you have portable signs, like somebody, restaurant puts a sign out in front of their place. Is there any, it's under the temporary signs, but does it require a permit, or is that just they can just do that?
So temporary signs do not require a permit, but if code enforcement notices they are out of compliance, then they do have to be taken down. They
Okay,
have
as
to be
long as they comply with, or they meet these standards, they can put them out there for the day.
Yes, but they do have
Okay.
to take it back.
Great, and then the other one, the sale signs are not, the feather,
Feather signs are not allowed unless it's with a approved temporary use permit.
okay. And there was one other sign that I wondered about. Portables was it? Oh, bench signs. So bench signs say like call Saul, that if somebody wanted to donate a bench and engrave the name of, in memory of, is that considered a sign?
That would not be considered a sign.
Okay, because I've seen that happen in other communities, and we don't want to discourage that kind of thing. I guess that's all I have for the moment. Councilmember Odell.
Yeah, my big thing, what's the biggest change for residents or businesses that this ordinance, I mean, are we reducing the signs? I mean, without getting all super technical, but I mean, what's the main changes that businesses need to know if they're coming in here that it's going to be different than what we've had in the past?
Yeah, I would say the biggest changes would be the addressing of temporary signs and then a shift away from pole signs to monuments.
And monument, or?
A pole to monument.
A pole, okay. Because I noticed I read this and I'm driving around and said, well, that one doesn't meet the ordinance, but it wouldn't have to go away. This is for future signs.
That is correct, yes.
So like a Tim Hortons sign on a pole is what you're saying? Like a
Yeah.
fast food sign, that those would not be allowed?
No, they would have to be monument style now,
Moving forward.
moving forward.
The other
Moving
ones would be
forward.
Right. Right. No, I get that.
And if you had a sign that was falling down, it was rusted, the pole was rusted out, you would have to then, we could come in and say, this is in danger to the public, you must replace it, and then they would have to conform with our ordinance. They would not be grandfathered into that. Could they do a variance if they request a variance?
They could. They'd have to prove practical difficulty.
Yeah.
Not an easy thing to do, but because practical difficulty can't be financial.
Okay.
There'd be something unique about the property.
All right. Councilmember Baranski.
Yeah, does this ordinance or the cleaning up of it now take care of some of the issues we had in the past with like political signs and things like that, where we weren't enforcing what we thought were violations, like people that left their political signs in the public way? Does this clean all of that up?
So essentially, how we're not regulating political signs at all. That would violate
Right.
confidentiality. But so how we have addressed it is that there are a certain amount of yard signs that are permitted, a certain amount of square footage,
Okay.
and a location where they must be, and it cannot be in the right of way. It has to be set back from the sidewalk as well, so it does not get into the way of pedestrians or vehicles. But that is how we've addressed political signage without addressing political.
Right, it's the complaints that we get are primarily the complaints I get from residents are primarily political. The ordinance is for all signs, but it will now be clear, because I know that Mr. Denault and I have talked specifically about some of the residents' concerns. You think it now makes it clear what is and is not allowed to allow our code enforcement officer to regulate it properly?
Correct,
Consistently.
And I think it makes it easier for him too.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Councilmember Odell.
Oh, one last thing, like garage sale signs, are those allowed? That hasn't changed. I mean, can they put it on the corner? Because like my subdivision has a sale every year that for the whole sub, is that something that's gonna change? Is that because it's a temporary sign, obviously, but I mean,
Yeah, I think the answer to that is, it is regulated as a temporary sign, as long as the property owner has allowed it to be there, and it's within the square footage and the numbers, it's allowed.
it's usually in a common area, so.
Yeah, so that would be the owner, right, the common area of the subdivision itself maintains that area. So if the subdivision itself is okay, or the association, or whoever it may be, it can be there. And just don't exceed the square footage, don't exceed the numbers. And we do have bans on, billboards and off-premises signs, but that's a temporary sign, that's not a billboard or off-premises sign as far as we're concerned.
All right, thank you.
Question, the banners, residential area, can you have a banner on your fence?
I believe banners are not permitted either, unless it's in conjunction with an approved temporary use.
That's correct.
I'm not planning on one, but I'm just asking, so. All right, someone want to make a motion? Go ahead.
I'll make the motion to approve the sign ordinance amendment as submitted to council.
All right, motion by Councilmember Odell, seconded by Councilmember Baranski. Any other comment by council? Seeing none, any member of the audience like to speak on this? I'd like to thank you, the Planning Commission, and everyone, and the lawyers, and for making this happen. I'm looking forward to the next the zoning ordinance change, too. So with that said, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Thank you very much. I will. All right, let's see how fast we can get through this. Item 7H, Masonic Pump Station. I think that would be the City Manager Levin and Mr. Vigneron. Who would like to start?
Thank you. So before you tonight, we have a recommendation to award a contract for the Masonic Stormwater Pump Station Rehabilitation Project. This project went through the public bidding process. 6 bids were received. The as-read low bidder had some irregularities in their bid. AEW contacted references for the low red bidder and the second bidder, and the recommendation is to award it to the second bidder, LD Augustini and Sons, in the amount of $1,767,840. This project would include the complete rehabilitation of both stations over there. There are 2 of them, including 4 pumps, a gas standby generator, new instrumentation and controls, and dredging the pond and cleaning up some of the overgrowth that has occurred over time there. The station is in desperate need of some love, and it's overdue.
I went by there yesterday and took a picture. And if you want to see what failing infrastructure looks like, you could use that as a poster. It looks like it was installed in the 60s, probably.
That was installed at the same time Venetian Village and Venetian Woods went in to handle.
Yeah, late 50s, early 60s.
50s.
So, Councilmember Baranski.
I'll make a motion to award a contract for the Masonic Pump Station Rehabilitation Project to L. DeAgostino and Sons in the amount of $1,767,840, and to authorize the DPW superintendent and city manager discretion to approve an additional contract cost from a construction contingency of $176,784 for a total authorization not to exceed $1,944,624.
Second.
Okay. All right, motion by Councilmember Baranski, second by Mayor Pro Tem Sutherland. Any other member of council like to speak on this? Any member of the audience? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes. Thank you very much. Item 7, I guess 7I, Klein Adolph School Crossing Engineering Proposal. City Manager, you and I have talked about that. Could you explain where that came from?
Sure. So back when we were working on Klein Road, there was a curb cut for crossing over by Adolph. When the road project was done, because that was non-conforming, it was put back into a conforming status. Since then, we have received complaints from neighbors in the area asking what happened to it, why can't we get it back? So that's kind of why we are here today, is to take a look and have an engineering study done to review if that is a safe and good area and how to potentially best design a pedestrian crossing to the school.
Mr. Vigneron? Can you?
Yes, I think City Manager Levin summed it up really well. In speaking with Director Krushmar on this particular location, there is a requirement that before a new school crossing is established, that an engineering study be conducted in conjunction with the school district and the city to make sure that it is an appropriate location for it and the need is there. And then once that is done, then the city has directs the crossing to be installed in accordance with those requirements.
Okay. Council member, or Mayor Pro Tem Sutherland.
So, just a question. Why wasn't, even if it was non-conforming, because there was a crosswalk there at that time, why didn't we take care of it back then?
There was not a crosswalk there at the time. It was a sidewalk that went to a curb with no curb cut. There was no receiving ramp on the opposite side.
Okay.
So in those instances, you either have to make it a conforming crossing or you remove it. There was no traffic control order for the crossing at the time. There was no signs, no markings, anything like that.
So it was like an informal crosswalk at the time. Okay.
It was two pieces of concrete that went to Klein, and then you crossed and you were in the driveway. So it was what everybody's used forever.
Well, that's definitely a high-traffic, important school area. So I'll make a motion to approve the engineering services for the Klein pedestrian crossing study with the AEW in the amount of $6,500.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Sutherland, seconded by Councilmember Baranski. Councilmember Odell.
A quick question. Garfield's getting redone. School crossings will be included in that section of Garfield? Just so we don't.
I believe, I know the signalized crossing that was installed a few years ago is getting upgraded as part of this. They're upgrading the traffic signals at Klein and Garfield. I don't believe any mid-block crossings are being installed on Garfield.
Drive, just if we're putting all that money in there for school entrance and whatnot, it should have a proper crossing. But I don't know.
There's requirements in terms of how far you are from signalized controlled crossings and things of that nature that all kind of play into it.
Okay. Thank you.
Would this be a possibility of having a hawk light installed there? There are some
Klein?
grant monies out there for that.
We would look at meeting minimum thresholds for a variety of different enhancements. It might just be signs and pavement markings. It may be something a little bit more robust, what we would call a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, where you could push a button and some additional lights would flash. A hawk would be very restrictive in terms of pedestrian traffic, but it'll stop traffic and give pedestrians a green light. So we would evaluate based on the traffic volumes on Klein, the speeds, and the number of pedestrians using that.
How long, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. How long would this take to get the study done?
Relatively quickly. I would imagine that we'd have to find a good time to do all of this, but within a couple of months, we would have it wrapped up and a report prepared to potentially budget something in the next year if capital improvements are necessary or required.
I'm going to, SEMCOG there's I don't know if it's a TAP grant or what it is out there, but I'm going next week to the TCC, and I'll inquire as to what the window is, and if we can get some funds from there, definitely do it. Thank you. Any member of the audience like to speak on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. All right. 7J, DPW building siding. Welcome, Mr. Barrett. Joe, come on up here too.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you is a request to replace the siding on the Public Works building. I know I shared photos of you, the conditions of how horrific the building is. It's patches of repairs and dents and holes and open to the elements. You guys council graciously budgeted $100,000 for us to replace the siding. Joe did the due diligence and got 3 different quotes from different vendors, and 3 bids were obtained and reviewed. Public Works Department requests that Allied Building Services be awarded the bid to replace the siding in the Public Works building in the amount of $62,375. I don't know if you looked at the bids in detail, but Allied's bid included all the gutters, but not the downspouts, right? Not the downspouts, and all the detail of moving electrical conduit, and a very complete bid, and that's why we're recommending the award to Allied.
Okay. Councilmember Shornack.
I would like to make a motion to approve the bid for Allied Building Service to replace the siding on the Public Works building in the amount of $62,375, because I do know that we did already.
I'll second that. Any other council would like to weigh in on this? Any member of the audience? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
No. Okay. 6-1. Mayor Pro Tem Sutherland said no. All right. Thank you. Item 7K, Steffens Park gazebo roof.
So, as you're aware, we have the gazebo out there right next to the tennis court. The roof is in poor condition. We had great discussion on improvements, a lot of improvements to Steffens and Main Park, but, you know, we're not sure what our plans are, but I think one of the directives from council was to look at that roof at least, because that is not in the middle of the park, and it is something that we're going to probably continue to invest in. So we did get bids for to replace the roof. That is a shaker shingle on the roof. It's Public Works Department requests that Premier Roofs and Renovations be awarded the bid to replace the shaker roofs on the gazebo at Steffens Park in the amount of $10,774.35. We were thought it was a little high, but we did get other bids in, and that was the low bid, and it came in range. When Joe mentioned that, you know, why is it so high, and they offered a 3-tab asphalt shingle, which would not fit or look right there, but I included it in the agenda item because it was included in some of their bids when we inquired about the price of shaker shingles.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Sutherland.
What about what's under the roof? How does the rest of the gazebo look? Are we putting lipstick on a pig?
I think the roof is taking a lot of the damage out there. A lot of the infrastructure, more than likely, you have a good point, that we probably have to do some staining to the gazebo, but if you want to invest in your assets that are out there right now, it needs a roof to protect it.
Okay.
So would repairing, restaining everything underneath the roof, is that something that DPW could handle, or are we going to be going out and soliciting a company to do that work?
Council's direction, we can obtain bids to stain that. We don't have the manpower or the skill to stain that, but we can look into that if that's what you'd like to do.
Just kind of think that it might be a cost savings to just redo it all at once than just fix the roof and then piecemeal it together. It just seems kind of odd to just do the roof, and then, I don't know if any of you have been in that gazebo lately, but it's not good. So it just seems odd to put a new roof on it and then have the rest of it left dilapidated.
What would you say how old is that gazebo? Anyone know?
It's at least 25 years old.
And what is the useful life of wood gazebo outdoors that hasn't been maintained very well?
And that's just the issue, as you stated, similar to, you know, Fort Fraser, is, you know, a lot of maintenance has been deferred. And I would tend to agree that it might be meeting the end of its useful life, but I think if you want, we can take a look at a cost of replacing a gazebo, or we can wait on this until you have a bigger picture of what you want to do with all of Stephens Park. But it was, I understand it was council's direction to get a price to replace the roof.
I appreciate
So then I'm just thinking also, I mean, we had budgeted, I don't know if it was last year or this year, so Ms. Levin, I might need your help with it, $100,000 towards rehabbing Fort Fraser, and then we got the $40,000 from Senator Kleinfeld's office. Councilman Odell, you can help me with that one. We used that to put, what was it?
About 35.
35, put that back in to reimburse for what we already spent on rehabbing Stephens. So why wouldn't we just, since we had already spent that, use that money that we got from Senator Kleinfeld's office, $35,000, we could maybe get a whole new gazebo rather than putting $10,000 into a new roof. It just, that seems a bit more responsible at this time.
I would, Councilmember Bransky first.
So you threw me for a loop with that. I didn't know you were going to go there. Because I was going to inquire. I thought that DPW did a lot of the repairs on Fort Fraser, so I'm a little taken aback when you say you can't have the capacity to do some staining and board repairs. But I think the direction I like you're going in is, let's postpone the roof and do an assessment of the gazebo collectively in terms of, is it just some stain and a couple boards, or is it structural such that spending 10, the lipstick on the pig nails? I'm with you. So, yeah, I think that we should adjourn this conversation and come back after you guys have looked at it and figure out what you could do when you have time.
So you're looking for a complete rehab of the gazebo and to
What's
present to
needed,
you, so you'll know
yeah.
what the costs are.
Yeah, you know, like you guys know, go out there, like, how do the boards look? Does it, you know, I haven't been in it.
I mean, if we can rehab as opposed to replace, right, obviously that's gonna be less expensive, but we could probably do a much better job and do one and done than just putting a new roof on it, and then, God forbid, something happens and there's a really bad storm and it's dilapidated, and then it all falls down, and then we spent $10,000 on a new roof for nothing.
So would you like to postpone this, or would you like to just not take action? You guys know what or do you know what we're looking for?
I do know what you're looking for. We could, vote no on this request to replace the roof, and we will look further into the structure itself and make an assessment and report back to you the cost to replace the roof and the structure, and there may be the economy to scale to do them both at the same time.
We'd like to know what it will take to make a 25-year-old gazebo look brand new.
And if it's worth it.
Or
And if it's
10
worth
years
it.
old.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to
Give
be
it a
brand
face.
new.
I know.
Little nip tuck for
Hey,
the.
we're just nip tuck.
Botox, not
All right.
actual surgery.
The main thing is, we're not going to vote no on this. What we're saying is we're not voting on it, and we'll just have you come back.
Right.
At some point in time in the future, and we'll make a long-term assessment on what the best path to take is to fix the whole thing. So, all right, thank you. 7L, Rhindell Park Building Proposal.
Okay, again, we had great discussion during our budget sessions. I think council recognize that the park is landlocked. The park is dilapidated. The baseball diamonds need to be replaced. The walking path has to be repaired. The basketball courts are in poor condition. You have an asset on the property, which is the Rhindell building, which is used for a small portion of storage and a small fitness room for the employees. So the direction we got was, I think Superintendent Ragsdale brought to you a bid of $65,000 to put a new roof on it, and the direction was to get additional prices and compare the prices to demoing it so you guys can make a decision on what you want to do. So what's in front of you, and further, I can go over the pros and cons, but there's a lot of information to take in when you're going to decide to demo a building or put a new roof on it. You can put a new roof on it for $28,000, or you can go to the second option, to demo the building for $11,800. While we're on this item, I made a mistake when I prepared the agenda item. I thought this was budgeted, and this is a budgeted item, so there will have to be amendment to the budget. We can go into the pros and cons if you haven't had a chance to look at those, or do you want to discuss them?
Who's using it right now? Like, is anybody using it on a regular basis?
Right now, the leak is pretty significant. We have 5-gallon buckets on the inside that we empty during every rainfall. So talking to our employees, they used to use it. The employees made efforts to, when they were presented the opportunity to have a fitness building, they got donations to put fitness equipment in there. Some personally put their own fitness equipment in there. So I think the commitment is there to continue using it or to start reusing it if we put a new roof on. In the pros and cons, I do think the carpeting will have to be replaced with a gym mat or some type of carpet mat or something in there. Another significant point I discovered is that the building's being heated by propane at a cost of $7,000 a year for a long time. And there is a consumer's gas line in the back, and if you see the sheet on the DTE calculator, if you decide to put a roof on it, there'd be significant savings on putting a gas line in there. Since the agenda item was prepared, I had a couple conversations with consumers and trying to figure out the return on investment for how much a gas line would cost and how much we're saving. I confirmed this, and I talked to 2 different people at consumers, but they will put a gas line in for the cost of a connection fee of $200. And that's running 90 feet of pipe, checking if there's an easement on the Oak Ridge parcel, and if there's one, they will do the legal work and buy an easement from the owner to get a gas line in there for $200.
Okay.
Which is an option we could pursue if you decide you want to re-roof.
Okay. I have 3 lights. Councilmember Stein?
So I have a question. So you're saying at this moment, you're only going to be using this, if we keep it, let's say we redo the roof, would be for a gym for DPW?
I think that's not your only option, but that's your current use here. It's one of the city's assets, the building.
Okay, and what else in the building inside the structure would it need to be brought up to code or brought up to be able to be used? So what other costs are we looking at?
In my opinion, the structure of the building is in sound shape. The roof is rusted out. As I stated, especially where the rain has been leaking into the building, the carpet is shot, and the carpet is really old to begin with. So I see minor maintenance costs such as putting flooring in and painting, cleanup.
So another $10,000. I mean, estimate, if you really think about all that stuff. Okay. And we're paying right now, so you said like $7,000 just to heat the building that no one uses, correct?
Nobody currently uses.
And our costs would go down. You gave me an estimate on what the cost would be for annual natural gas cost?
Yes, it's in the packet there, but we're paying $7,000, and utilizing the DTE consumers calculator, the costs will go down to $600-700 a year as opposed to $7,000 a year.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Baranski.
I'm sorry, can I add one more thing before I? What else could we utilize that building for? What else do you see? I mean, if it's going to be a gym, I don't think there's anything else we could utilize that for unless you're going to move gym equipment and not have the gym equipment in, right? I mean,
I don't have a division of what we could use it for. I think might have to come in with a bigger picture of what you want to use
'Cause
Pinedale Park for.
To me, to put this much money in a building that we're just gonna use for a gym and not for all the residents that pay our taxes, it doesn't, yeah, sorry.
You're fine. What I was going to say is, we don't have access to this legally. So I am not in favor of putting one dime in improvements into this, because the very next day, the business owners, or however we're accessing it, can stop our access. So I'm a no on any improvements, and the issue for me is whether we pay to demo it or wait. But if it's becoming a mess and an eyesore to our community, I say tear it down.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Is the city insured and/or do city employees sign a liability waiver to use the facility as a fitness center?
I'll defer to the city manager, but I do believe when I was hired, I signed a liability form or something about the gym there.
It's something that's outlined in our employee manual currently.
Okay, so we're covered if somebody
When
gets
they
hurt
sign
working out
that,
over there.
They're aware that this exists, and that obviously they're using it at their own risk.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Supervisor Gregory said it was, in addition to it being in the employee handbook, when it was brought up that we had to sign some release, existing employees all signed a document, lease and liability.
Okay.
At one point in time, there was some consideration from, I can't remember who the previous HR person was that was handling it. But considering the fact that public safety has a gym facility and we have it in our employee manual, that we could go to some type of subscription-based service with some other provider, should we choose to.
That's more the way the world is going to, so, okay.
Councilmember Odell.
So, did I hear you right? You said they can use the gym here if they wanted to?
No, that's
Yeah.
for public
Oh,
safety.
for public safety. I mean, shoot, I'd rather offer everybody a Planet Fitness membership for $10 a month, it would be a heck of a lot cheaper than trying to keep a building up, but, I just don't see this building being functional really in any way, to justify the yearly cost, if it could be used for sports activities or something, but it's, I believe it doesn't even have any windows, correct? It's just a concrete, it's just very, I'd probably be in favor of demolishing it because it's got such a limited use and like I say, I'd rather give them a gym membership to Planet Fitness than use this just for the, I just don't think it's worth the cost.
Councilmember Shornack.
Economically speaking, I'm a demolish it, so I'm going to make a motion to demolish the building.
Okay. All right, I'm going to weigh in and say the building is worth more than $11,000. We're landlocked. We haven't made a final plan on what we're doing there. And so I'm not in favor of demolition yet, but I was wondering if there's a way we can still go with gas while we make a look at that property and see if there is a way to get ingress and egress to it for our residents. That's where I sit. I'd hate, I went out there yesterday and looked at it. The building looks solid. The cinder blocks look, the building itself look, once you told me that there's a gas line 90 feet from that, and we've been paying propane for years, that was very frustrating. But that said, it would cost more to build a building that size than if we, to tear it down is cheap, is relatively inexpensive, but then if we ever wanted to do anything there, that would cost more. So if we do nothing, and leave the roof as it is, what will happen inside?
I think just the structure would be slowly deteriorating because there is a lot of moisture in there. And you mentioned other maintenance items. There's a lot of rust, surface rust on a lot of the workout equipment and so forth, but I don't think there would be a lot of harm in waiting to decide what you want to do with Rhindell Park.
Okay. Councilmember Perry.
I'm just wondering if there's any way we can, I don't understand how this is landlocked to begin with. How did it, I've asked this question before when we talked about it, but is there any possible way we can get access to it from a neighbor here? I mean,
Buy it. You'd have to buy property.
no, like, I just don't realize, I don't understand how it got landlocked in the first place. You'd think we would have access to get, how do you get your machinery in to cut the lawn and whatnot?
They go through their school.
Trust, we go through.
Through school?
Right through private property. I did find some records in 1974. Was Eisenhower Park, and I could not find any records that it was donated from Eisenhower, but I think the park might have been, speculate the park might have been donated by the school and without a lot of thought, access to the park.
I looked at some overhead maps. You can see them on GIS Parcel Explorer from Macomb County. You can actually look back as it was built. DTE has them from 1949. And you can see that back then it was a much more informal ingress and egress. And I think that was a different time. And Oak Ridge has allowed us to use that parking lot, but if it became a more useful park, then we'd have a parking problem, so. But that's all I can add on that. Councilmember Shornack.
I just have a quick question. Because it is landlocked, and it really is just a money suck, because people really don't use it, if, and only if, so because the, I think what, their townhouses or whatever, back up to that, and, yeah, Fraser Woods. So, really, would we have to have a vote of the citizens to just let that be developed somehow? And like let them have access to that? Because then it wouldn't be landlocked. Because if you go through the townhouses and they wanted to add more townhouses there or whatever, I'm just thinking outside the box here for a minute, then they could just have access through there. You know, like to continue that building process there. Because honestly, at this point, no one uses that park. No one really goes to that park. I mean, every now and again you'll see somebody, but like the trails are really dilapidated. And unless the school wants to take it back, why have a piece of property that we call a park that really isn't being utilized as a park and really has no benefit to the city, where we can either give it back to Eisenhower and give it back to the schools if they would take it back, or possibly sell it to develop more townhouses right there because it's school, so that would make sense. And then they would have access. It wouldn't be landlocked because they could go in from where they're already at. Or is it, again, is getting rid of this park per se a vote of the people?
I honestly can't answer that one for you without researching it.
Wow, I stumped you. Yes, I
got
get an award.
We'd have to look at a title history. We'd have to
Yeah.
understand where it came from, to understand what we can do with it.
Right. I'm just saying,
Well, first we have to get a consensus to
right,
do it
well,
today, and then
yeah. I'm just saying, but I think we really need to.
call the order. Let's call the question. And
And
we just need to
townhouses
look-
don't have access to that. The townhouses don't have access to that. It would be the seniors' apartments.
I'm saying either or, they can put
But the
something.
townhouses don't have access to it.
But the point is to put it for sale
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
to adjoining people.
Exactly.
Because maybe these people on Doris want it.
Could buy a gazebo.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So the motion on the table is to demolish the building, just do a complete demo. So I will, all in favor, let's do a roll call, because I think, oh, yes, I'm sorry, please. Yes, come on up. I apologize.
Hi, it's me again.
Your name?
Laura Lessage, 15201 Fairview.
The record.
I was trying to look at my phone, but I believe Rhindell Park has a grant, and there's a plaque on that building stating that they got a grant to build that building or whatever. So you might want to look into that. I know it was a while ago, like you said, 1970s or whatever, but you might have to do some investigation on whether or not you can sell or demolish a building that was state grant, the state grant.
It was actually a Land Water Conservation Fund grant. and I don't know when it was, but it was sometime in the 70s. And I believe you can delete, or you can demolish obsolete buildings, but you need to get some kind of sign-off from, and I don't know what that process is.
We'll be talking about that one at home later.
So, all right. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Baranski.
Yes.
Mayor Lesich.
No.
Councilmember Odell.
Yes.
Councilmember Perry.
I'm not sure how to vote on this because I'm not ready to actually, I mean, can I abstain from a vote?
Nope.
Okay. Oh, I know. I'm going to be a no on demolition right now.
Councilmember Shornack.
Yes.
Councilmember Stein.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sutherland.
Yes.
That passes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-2.
5-2. Okay. Thank you very much. That concludes our lengthy, intense agenda. So item number 9, report of city administration.
So first and foremost, I would like to congratulate Captain Gillis on achieving his Fire Inspector 1 certification. Congratulations to him for that as he continues to move through the program to be able to help provide us the full services for fire marshal. We have some board vacancies that we are still looking to fill. At the next meeting, we are going to have quite a few appointments that are made from recommendations that we've received for other boards. However, we are still looking for 1 member for the Assessing Board of Review, 1 member for the Civil Service Commission, 1 member for Recreation Commission, 1 member for Zoning Board of Appeals, and the entire Construction Board of Appeals members. Christmas in Fraser is coming up December 7th, starting at 5:30. We have lots of fun events planned, certainly kicking things off with Santa and the high school band. I spoke with August, and he prepared just a brief summary of the election to provide information regarding that for you.
So thank you, City Manager. I won't take up too much of your time. I just want to share a couple numbers with you. Everyone likes numbers. So my favorite numbers from this election were 0 and 0. We had 0 issues with the Board of Canvassers, and during the election, we had 0 poll watchers, 0 challengers, 0 anything. No one was in there. We had no issues. It's a completely event-free election. This is my 5th, I think, presidential election I've run. I've never had anything go so smooth. And that's just a big thank you to Elaine and everyone in that suite, Mary and Cindy, and all of our workers. Everyone came together and did just a wonderful job. So it is really worth noting, though, that by election day, 60% of the city had already voted. Some precincts over 60%. I know precinct 6 was almost 70% of the eligible voters had voted. So we had 2,078 people vote early. Early voting was a huge success. Again, we had to bring in more workers because it was so successful. We had 3,274 AV voters, down considerably from the last election, but the last election was COVID. So we had like 5,000 vote that way. So on election day, we had just over 3,500 people vote. So we were down in percentage from 4 years ago, but only because we have more registered voters right now. So it was, in the end, 72.13% voted, 8,889. And the last number that I think is kind of fun, well, I have 2 more. In the last city council election in 2023, we had 2,314 people vote. In the next one, we're going to send out 3,046 AVs just to start. That's the new permanent AV list. So 2,314 people voted in 2023 in the local election, and now with the permanent AV list, which is only growing, we're going to have 3,046 ballots go out just right off the jump.
Doesn't anybody find that ironic?
Well, there's a change in state law about the permanent AV list versus a permanent ballot list.
Not that.
So, well, I know I get that.
People care so much about their
They come out of the woodwork.
you know.
And lastly, we had 30 people request ballots from overseas. We had people from Munich, Poland, Luxembourg, Slovakia, Italy, San Marino, Switzerland, several in London. The farthest requested one did not come back. That was in Singapore, over 9,000 miles away. But the farthest ballot that was mailed back to us was Carmen Yan, mailed his from Emer, Japan, 6,766 miles away by postal mail, and we got it on time.
Thank
So I thought it was worth giving him a shout out, so. And that's it. Thank you all.
Thank you. Are you all set, City Manager? Okay, Council. Start with Councilmember Stein.
First, I would like to thank August and all the team here, the city manager, all the poll workers. They did a fantastic job. I mean, just by what you said. So I just want to thank you all for your hard work in those days and the long days for you guys. Oh, yell that. Sorry,
Mike Nazi.
Yeah, say it all over again.
you were great. How about that?
Fine, thank you.
No, thank you. You guys did a great job, and especially with the early voting. I just want to say happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Please enjoy your family at this time. You know, that's more important than anything. I also want to talk about our Fraser First Blue Jean Ball, which is February 8th. Tickets will be going on sale right after Thanksgiving, so there'll be advertising coming out, so look out for that. Also, she already said about Christmas in Fraser. Also, Chris from Fraser Recreation put on a lot of new events. So please go on Facebook and look up the new events. There's a lot of adult events. There's some family-friendly events. So please go on there and look and see some things that you can do around the city. Other than that, that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Perry.
Just everybody have a nice Thanksgiving.
Thank you. That was brief. Councilmember Shornack.
The Historical Commission wants everybody to know that Santa's coming to town. Before he comes to town. He will be at the museum on December 1st from 1 to 4. They will have hot cocoa and cookies. And of course, we'll be having Christmas items for sale. And then on December 8th, they will be having a half off sale. On the 1st, it's an open house from 1 to 4. So, you know, get in, bring the little kiddos and let them get in to see Santa early. I also will agree with the election seemed to go very well and everybody seemed to be fine and there wasn't any obnoxious lines, so that was great. And wishing everybody a very happy and safe Thanksgiving. And just keep an eye out for the Goodfellows because shortly their paper run will begin. So get those articles because they're so cute when they put the little kids' letters in there to Santa with all the spelling errors. So.
Thank you. You all set? Okay. Councilmember Baranski.
I just have a clarification question. I probably should have asked it earlier. This isn't from the mayor or from city?
No.
Okay. I assume not, but I just literally, I just
I
was
don't write
looking
in
at
all
it.
caps.
And I was like, this was just given to, and you distribute it via envelopes. Is that what it was?
Correct. We received it in the mail, and then it was to be copied to all of council, so Mary put together the labels to make sure.
Okay.
So what you're saying is they clearly didn't watch that meeting.
And just so the public knows, it was just someone wrote an anonymous letter to all council members regarding our vote on sheets, and which is fine, bring it on. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Odell.
Just the Goodfellows had their Christmas auction the other day, and it went really well. Good turnout as always, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and other than that.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Shockingly, I don't have a lot, so just happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
All right, and I will be brief. Couple things, the tree lighting was mentioned. Microphones. I'd like a longer microphone stock. I'm tired of leaning in, and apparently my voice fades in and out on this, so I'd like to see us get that done. I'll say it because it's important. I'll repeat what others said. Thank you to the voting team. You guys did great. It takes poll workers and our internal people and a lot of planning, and I'm glad to hear everything went smoothly. Let's see. First Date or Shop Local Macomb and Small Business Saturday are coming up. Make Macomb Your Home and First State Bank are sponsoring a contest between November 22nd and December 8th. If you take a picture outside a local business and submit it, you can win $150 and they are giving away 10 $1,000 business grants to local businesses in our county. So it's Make Macomb Your Home, which is the county's, I don't know what they call it, lifestyle branding website. But check that out. Small businesses are important, and get your picture taken. I know Mount Clemens does a thing on Small Business Saturday, and there's a clown there. You can get a picture taken, and no, it's not me. I've got my picture taken with him. And then last but not least, on 11/17 at Freddy's, there will be a fundraiser for Mayor Taylor's wife, and he's the mayor of Roseville. His wife is suffering from ALS, and they are having a spaghetti fundraiser for her that day. So if you know her and you would like to help donate, please consider that. Other than that, thank you for, I'd like to thank this council and this team. We did a lot of stuff that's taken a long time to get here, and we did it. We did it respectfully, and we asked a lot of questions, and I think we made some good decisions. So I personally would like to thank everybody involved. And with that, I'll shut up and turn it over to the public. Any member of the public would like to speak? Oh, you got to turn on the microphone. Oh.
Green light should come on. There should be a button.
Try now.
Okay. Thank you for your due diligence and looking out forward, because if you know me, you know that if you don't have a plan, any road will get you there. I come to you tonight not to talk about what happened, where we are, planning, anything. It's about public safety. In the master plan, okay, which we are required to update every 5 years, and it's coming up, we have to start on the master plan again. In the Planning Commission, there's a portion in there about sidewalks. And although I know that allocations have to be done for different things and you have to set priorities, one area is the maintenance of sidewalks that are in place. Now, I live in, right behind Myers. My house was built, it's one of the newer houses. It was built 25 years ago, and I can walk around our neighborhood, and there are places where trees' roots are now having these sidewalks up this high. That we have no plan in place to replace those or cause the owners of the land to. Now, I've talked to city manager about this. She says it's not in the budget. Well, I'm here to, you've got a new budgeting coming up. I'm here to ask you guys to think about a fund or funding this somehow through an increase. It's usually done by charging the homeowner an increase in taxes. But it would require somebody to go out and look at this stuff. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about tonight. The master plan is important. It should be the basis for all of your decisions. Having said that, I understand when business conflicts with master plan, one has to go one way, one has to go another way. And I can live with all those decisions. So, but when I get up and I'm the head of the zoning board, I have to say, and public safety is carried out, it's tough to do when we don't look at certain aspects of our city. And I'd like you guys to take that under consideration and look at that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Please identify yourself for the record.
Laura Lessig, 15201 Fairview. In your discussion regarding the gazebo at Steffens Park, I believe a few years ago, the DPW made a deal to have it all painted. They painted it, and they painted a few other buildings in Steffens Park. So that happened. And then as you talk about what to do with that building, I think it's important that before anything is done with that building, you decide what you want to do with that park. Because I mean, who uses the gazebo anymore? We used to use it when we had the farmer's market. That's not happening. And is a gazebo really needed in that park and where it's at? Because if Fraser First then gets the approval to do what they want to do with a multipurpose building, the gazebo may not be a necessary item to have in that park. So I would like the council, city administration, to start something in planning a vision for that park, because it is an important park in our city. It is the main park, and we want people to come to our city to enjoy it as well. And just a few other things that I usually mention. The next Fraser First Booster Club meeting is Wednesday, November 20th at 6:30 at the Hanover Grove Conference Room area. And then directly after that, we're having a beautification club meeting at the same location, around 7:30, I believe that one's going to be at. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Motion to adjourn. I'll entertain one.
We have a closed session.
Oh, we have a closed session. All right.
That's what I
I
said.
was getting ahead of myself. All right.
I was all like, oh.
Believe me, I'm with you.
I know, I was like,
Don, this better be brief.
See, I already, okay. Somebody got a copy of the agenda, so I
Yeah.
can read it.
So make a,
Oh, I'll make,
You wanna
I
do it?
found it. Closed session, motion to enter into closed session to consult with the city attorney regarding trial or settlement in connection with Macomb County Circuit Court Case number 2023-000-951CE.
second.
All right, motion by Lessig, seconded by Baranski. All in favor, say, oh, we need a roll call vote?
Baranski?
Yes.
Lessig?
Yes.
Odell?
Yes.
Perry?
Yes.
Shornack?
Yes.
Stein?
Yes.
Sutherland?
Yes.
All right, let's go. It is
I was willing to.
it is now 10:17 PM, and we go into closed session.
Do we look hot?
Are we back on? It is now 10:25 PM. We're back from closed session. I'd like to make a motion to direct the city attorney to act, I forgot the motion.
To proceed as proposed in closed session.
Yes, to proceed as proposed in closed session.
Second.
Anyone in the audience like to speak? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All right, motion by somebody, seconded by somebody. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 10:26. Thank you.